Awesome. So thank you guys for joining the lecture. The lecture is titled Marketing 101 and MBA by Mzamo. So we are here today because of the exclusive interview we did weeks ago, which led to 2 more extensive sessions. We've already had one where Mzamo spoke about how do you fuel your life to live heavenly while still on earth. And then this is more of a career academic focus. With that said, though, even the first one that he did is based on the content and what he was saying. That, in fact, I think lays the foundation for you to become an exceptional marketer or remarkable in your career. So before we get into the lecture, just want to do a bit of an intro and share with you guys how everything is structured, and maybe you might have an idea. Maybe most of you don't know about the brand, and maybe some of you do know. Maybe you see a couple of things here and here. So this slide basically is to put everything into perspective and share with you how everything works. So you've got Thinkerneur, which is the consulting company. This is where we do brand, business, marketing, and advertising from a strategy point of view. So Mzamo, it's interesting you spoke about storytelling. I was working on a brief where, strategy, I find strategy to be difficult. So I was working on this brief and I was trying to crack it, and I realized later on that actually what was tripping me over was the flow. And when you start working on too many projects, you develop a formula, you develop a way of working, and sometimes it's not even the thinking that is incorrect. It's just the flow and how you structure your storytelling or your narrative on what you're going to land on. And then a day before, I just had a light bulb moment where I was like, you know what, nah? Actually, all the other slides are so unnecessary. So what I'm going to do is basically tell them what the solution is up front, and then I'll give them reasons as to why. So I sort of like flipped the process to say, okay, the build up, this is the thing. I was like, okay, this is the thing, and then just unpacking how I got to that. It was quite refreshing. So this is the consultancy business, and then I spoke about the exclusive interviews, which we do. So we interview marketers. So the idea with the exclusive interviews is that, so most often than not, there are other marketers who are doing amazing things, but because sometimes they don't have the right title, they often get overlooked. Even when they're like big events, they're always looking from from the top. So I think this gives us an opportunity to get exposed to other marketers, understand how they think, and that has been a great platform. And then we've got the Institute of Strategy, which is more about learning, academy, and just sort of like unpacking the industry and our field. So this was inspired by, so I'm personally not an academic. In fact, if I could, I don't know if I'll ever go back to school, but if I could, I'd like to avoid going back to school. I'm a firm believer in practical knowledge, taking in knowledge and using it as you go along. And obviously, academy and school, they've got a role to play. What I appreciate about varsities and such institutions is that they're able to sort of like put everything into one picture and organize the information for you and give you the tools that you can apply. But I'm also an advocate for learning on the job, or getting exposed to different sources that allow you to take in information and apply it almost immediately. So we have the strategy sessions. We have a platform called Connecting the Dots, which is more business orientated. And then we have the lectures, which Mzamo is going to do. I think there'll be more amazing, incredible lectures coming through that we've lined up. And then in addition, we put out content that speaks to strategy, thinking, advertising, and the industry as a whole. So without further ado, as the Institute of Strategy, we present to you the Marketing 101 and MBA lecture by Mzamo. Zamo, I'd like to hand over to you. You let me know when to skip to the next one. Yeah?
Super. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Please let me know if you can't hear me. I used to say to people, because now I live in the suburbs, so I speak softly. There was a time when I used to speak louder, but now there's protocol here on noise. Now, what I will do is I will take you through these 25 years, like of some of these companies or things that I have done, and also having been a lecturer or teacher or just in academia or practitioner. So I've tried as much as I can to summarize what I know in 25 years with 25 gifts. So I've kind of put it into 25 gifts. I do not know how long this will take. This is the first time ever I'm doing this. And so let me know when we stop. You tell me when to stop. And so if you go to the next slide. So before I talk about this slide, what I forgot to say, because some people say I'm controversial, let me just say this, a disclaimer. Everything I'm about to say are my own opinions and no one else's opinions. No company, no Thinkerneur, they're just mine opinions, and you are entitled to agree or disagree with them, or even challenge them. In that way, I will learn even more. So the way I thought about this is that before I give you the 25 gifts, I thought what maybe I should do is talk about the way I see marketing is you are either a specialist or you are a generalist. And as I've said before, it's not, one is not more superior than the other. It just depends on you and your preference. So it's just you need to decide this in your career, whether you're going to become a specialist all your life or you're going to become a generalist almost all your life. And in my career, I have moved between being a specialist and a generalist. And I'll probably die trying to move between generalist and specialist because I also like market research, market insights, data analyst, or insights, media, digital marketing on its own, but I also like marketing as a general practitioner, brand management, all of that. So you decide. And whether you're an agency, whether you're a client, and I think this applies as well if you're an entrepreneur, is that over time, I think as an entrepreneur, you start as a generalist because you jack of all trades. As the business grows, you start hiring specialists and some generalists. So you need to decide the ratio between generalist and specialist in your business or in your agency or in you as a client. So that I leave it up to you. All I can say that there is no wrong or right answer. Then the other things, then I think we did talk about in the first part one, where I just said that the things I think about is depth and breadth, that in your career you must build breadth and you must build depth, and that it's nothing to do with the number of years you've worked, it's the quality of the projects you've done that matters and what you've achieved from those quality projects. Because I know enough people who've worked for 25 years, but they've done very little. And then I've known people who've worked for 5 years and they've done things I've never done before. So their 5 years sometimes equates to 30 years. And my 25 years could be even less than the stuff that they've done in 5 years. So rather obsessed with quality of projects rather than quantity of projects. So next slide. So someone asked me as well that what are the skills and competencies in advertising, marketing, creative that matter? The way I understood this is that there are two ways you get measured. This is how I've always been measured, whether it be Unilever or Nike or Vodafone or Vodacom or Google. It's what you do, which is your skills. It's what you do and what you know. And then it's how you do it. The what you do is all the stuff that you need to know. It's knowledge, whether it's knowledge gathered over studying, it's knowledge gathered on the job, it's knowledge gathered through coaching and mentoring, but it's what you do. And this one is more visible and tend to be a lot more objective and easy to measure. And that's how you're going to be measured anyway. Yes, the slides will be shared. Then the other thing then is how you do it. How you do it then really talks to values. It's the values that you bring to the table. Because some people are assholes, but they are really great at what they do. Ideally, you'd need to penalize that person on their performance rating if all they do is do great work while killing others, while leaving dead bodies, while being disrespectful, while being an asshole, while being a chauvinist. All of those things are not needed because they don't create and produce great work. So you should be measured on what you do, and you should also be measured on how you do it. And your companies normally have both of these. And you just need to understand in your company how the how is far more subjective. It's not as objective as the what you do. What you do is easily measured. How is not always easily measured because it's a lot about feelings, how you make people feel. And that is very subjective and it's not easy. But it's also possible to measure, but it's not easy. That's where subjectivity kicks in. It's on the how, but the what tends to be a lot more objective. Next. So the way, for example, at Google, sometimes leadership expectations are put into these three buckets. The first one is you have to drive amazing work and results because you must be good at doing shit. There's no point in just talk. You must be able to deliver amazing work and amazing results because that's what really increases respect, increases trust, increases more responsibility. That's what gets you promoted as well. Then you must also be able to lift yourself and others up. What that basically means is that they lift yourself. When you're in an aeroplane, they say put the mask on you first. You can't give from an empty cup. So you must be able to self-care, be able to self-develop, be able to learn. If I want to be able to share with you what I know, then I must be able to do the work, read, apply myself, practice, do things so that I can have the knowledge and lift myself up first, then go and lift others up. So don't forget to lift others up while you're lifting yourself. And then the last one, you must lead with values. And out of all the values that at Google is most precious, it's respect. So you need to have respect. And I think I love that value more than any other value, is that you really need to be respectful. Next. So this is my first really start of the lessons. The first one was just an intro on how I think about my career and how I think about specialists versus generalists. You need to get things done and you need to get them done well. The second thing is you need to be able to deliver amazing work while lifting others up and lifting yourself up. And then you need to do it with great values. Most importantly, respect and integrity matter. Now, the gift one to all of you is that I hope you all remember that your ignorance is infinite. Everyone's ignorance is infinite. You don't know everything. Even myself, the stuff that I know is probably just about 1% of what I need to know. I still have a lot of work to do, and I still have a lot of learnings to learn. And so you need to start your career with a humility that says, I am ignorant and I know very little. And there's a lot of work I need to learn. I mean, if I give you an example on this is, 3 years ago, I was in the US and I was attending my first Google, they call it NOGLA orientation, which is kind of an onboarding. And when I was there, I decided to go to the toilet and I looking for signs, making sure I'm in the right toilet. And when I went inside the toilet, I noticed that there were sanitary pads in the toilet. And that freaked me out because I thought I was in the wrong toilet. So I ran out because I've never been in a male toilet before that has sanitary pads. So I ran out and I stood outside just to show you how ignorant and binary my thinking has been. That I've always been thinking male, female, and I've forgotten that there is a continuum and a spectrum in sexual orientation. And again, when I was outside, I watched and I thought I would wait for men to go in. And then when men went in, but again, that tells you or told me that I'm still binary in my thinking and my ignorance is infinite about sexual orientation. And I was looking at men going inside the toilet as if sexual orientation is written in someone's forehead, as if I would know who's transitioning, who's lesbian, who's gay, or who's asexual, I wouldn't know that, but I was ignorant. And then I decided after 10 or 15 men who went in that I was in the right toilet, I went in and I took all those sanitary pads and I went and I locked myself into the toilet, and it took me 1 hour and I studied those sanitary pads. I went on YouTube, I went on Google Lens, I studied them. I studied things that I've never needed or to study or I didn't know. I had to study about anal sex, which is something that I didn't know. I knew it existed, but I was clueless about what it is, the biology, the anatomy, why people use sanitary pads, why men use sanitary pads, why men who are transitioning use sanitary pads. All of that I was ignorant, but I came out of that 1 hour with more knowledge than before. And I was with more empathy than before. And so the key thing that I'm learning about ignorance is that the higher your ignorance, the higher your prejudice. The higher your ignorance, the higher your stupidity. You write stupid briefs if you're ignorant. You make stupid mistakes like the ones at Clicks, where you do comparisons of white hair versus black. That's just ignorance, which increases stupidity. So the higher the ignorance, which is what we need to work on, then the higher the prejudice, the higher the stupidity, the higher the stereotyping. So as a marketeer and in your career, even if you're a marketeer, you're in HR or engineering, anywhere, you need to work on your ignorance. Next. And when you work on your ignorance, what it also does, it helps you give others benefit of doubt. You are always giving benefit of doubt because you know that ignorance, actually prejudice is a long-term emotional commitment to ignorance. So you have stupidity and pathologies partly because you're ignorant. You remove those, you reduce ignorance, you're less homophobic. You reduce ignorance, you're less xenophobic because you start to know that the Congolese and the Nigerians that are in South Africa will not be here. They didn't just leave their countries or Zimbabweans because they like South Africa. They are here for good reasons. And majority of them are not criminals. And majority of them are good, abiding citizens. Majority of them are smart and intelligent. So if you know that, then because you've done the work, you've met with the few Nigerians, Zimbabweans, Congolese, Ethiopians, Senegalese, and you've asked them questions, then that reduces your ignorance and that also reduces your xenophobia. As a marketeer, you have to be willing to give benefit of doubt and you have to assume positive intent. If you can't do that as a marketeer, how then do you judge great creative? If all you do is enter that creative judgment with high levels of ignorance. So you need to work hard on your ignorance. The next. And the other thing that you should be doing then with your ignorance is that you are at your best if you ask lots of why. You must always be asking why people do the things they do. When I'm at shopping malls, when I go to a club, which I don't do a lot anymore, but when I used to go to a club, all I was looking at, which I'm boring because I'm not into dance or I don't drink alcohol. So when I'm at a club, I'm just an academic watching people and I'm just trying to work out why do people do the things they do? And for example, I would always think, what would happen if someone comes into a club with a petrol tank, not a Mercedes or a Kia, and say to everyone, I've got a full tank? Will they get laid faster? Will they be laughed at? Would someone give them a chance? Or are the party club choose the key, the nice car key, or the nice Gucci shoe, or Louis Vuitton shoe, or the bag, the nice Gucci bag, or those who wear less fabric, what I call them fabric conservationists or fabric minimalists. What is it that is going on at the club? What makes the club a club? What makes it fun? What makes those who are having more fun more funny and others who are grumpy? So that's the why and what is going on. Why are things happening? Even when I used to, long time ago, go to a strip club, I'll be more interested in why is that lady getting more clients than that one? What is the why? What are the triggers? So you see that I'm kind of boring to take to a strip club or a party because I am just an academic at heart and I'm just interested in why. When I go to a shopping mall, I am studying what people are wearing. I am studying what are they doing. I look at those who are single versus those who are partnered. And I look at those who are single, their levels of happiness, emotion. And I look at those, the guys who have girlfriends or partners or the partners, whether it's same sex, and I look at how happy or miserable they make each other, what decisions they make, what do they buy. And that's stuff that you have to do if you really want to be improving as a creative marketeer. It's just you need to embrace why so that you can generate great insights. Next slide. And also you need to remember, when you start thinking about why and when you start reducing your ignorance, I love this knowledge I received on neuropsychology or cognitive psychology is that human beings actually have more than one brain. You have multiple brains because the neurons are distributed throughout your body. So I'm going to say something crude. Some of you might not like it. But the thing is, I never understood this when people said you think with your dick. I never understood that. I always used to think that was funny. But now I actually know it's true because the neurons are distributed throughout your body. So it is possible that you can make stupid decisions and just think with your dick. No wonder the world is full of unplanned kids. No wonder the world is full of mistakes. No wonder the world is full of unplanned pregnancies. No wonder because we are all thinking sometimes below the belt, which actually says that there are neurons there, down there below, which we sometimes overused, and we use less of the heart, the gut, and the brain, and the head brain. And sometimes we use the heart more, which actually explains why when you look at your partner, you wonder, what did I do? And how did I fall in love with this person? Because that was a stupid decision. And so that also tells you that there are multiple hearts and you must use all of them if you really want to improve and reduce your ignorance. And you must use instincts, you must use feelings, intuition, you must use the gray matter, but don't just rely on your brain only. Your intuition is also your brain. Your feelings are also your brain. Your instincts are also your brain. There are neurons everywhere, even to your toe, there are neurons. So you might as well exploit your whole body and use all of it rather than just your head. Next. So what I then also say to marketeers and creatives is that, remember this, what you're going to get measured on once your ignorance is reduced and once you ask a lot of questions, then you must be able to, when you ask why, then you must be able to see it, see the issue, see the problem, see the opportunity. It assumes you can think. Then the next thing you must be able to do is write well. And people who write well are great storytellers too. Then you must be able to communicate well. That means you must practice writing well. You must practice communicating well. If you're not great at communication, invest in public speaking, invest in communication, invest in writing. Find people who write better than you. Once you've done that, you see it, you must be able to show that you can solve it. And then once you can solve it, then you must deliver the results. And once you've done that, then it must be scalable. You must do things that can be scaled beyond South Africa, beyond Johannesburg, to other provinces, outside South Africa, even outside the continent. You must scale it outside the continent. You must be able to do things that scale outside the continent. Then you're thinking globally. You're thinking bigger than just your own, where you were born. You must sell shoes that can sell globally.
Yeah, I've got a question. So, is this the mentality you have on every single brief? Because so how do you apply this when they say, oh no, it's just small to medium thing, or no, it's just a small brief, or it's just a when do you apply this? Do you wait for big briefs where now it's like now we're doing it, or is this the mentality that you apply as you go into every brief or every job?
I don't, I guess because I've been a traditional healer for a very long time, one thing you learn as a traditional healer is that there's no such thing as small ceremony, big ceremony. Who are you to make that decision? Who are you to say a gift is small, a gift is big? You don't know that because all gifts carry an emotional and spiritual dimension to them. So for me, I take that to place of work. For me, there's no such thing as a small brief, big brief, medium brief, a cheap one, big money. I don't equate it to money. I equate it to what are we trying to do? What is the impact we are trying to make? Whether it's 20,000 Rand that we're going to pay or 200,000 Rand or 2 million Rand, for me, that doesn't matter. What matters is that we can actually do a 20,000 Rand project that end up being scaled to become a global project, to become a 5 million Rand project. But it started as a 20 million Rand project. I think it's disrespectful to the work if you start by saying, now it's just small, or it's just a tiny brief, or it's not important. That's kind of disservice to the work that you're trying to do. Everything that you should be doing has a potential of becoming big because most great things start small anyway. So you might as well see the small as something that potentially can become big. So I hope I've answered that question. Next slide. I like this quote because I read it, I had it from Seth Godin, who has this book called This is Marketing. And in one of the YouTube videos, he talks about you need to figure out how to be wrong on your way to being right. And that's the joy with reduction or reducing ignorance, is that you have to know that you're going to be wrong many times. So that means you have to figure out how to be wrong. But the only way you're going to figure out how to be wrong is just make shitloads of mistakes on your way to being right. And you are going to get some things right, but you're also going to get lots of things wrong. But you're just going to have to figure out how to be wrong on your way to being right. Next. So the second gift. So the first gift was really more about ignorance. And it was all about a fight against ignorance and ignorance management and ignorance reduction, which helps reduce your prejudice and stupidity, which helps you not make easy goals or score own goals like the ones at Clicks or Unilever that they've done. Those are stupid decisions that just could have been avoided, that should not be done. So that is something that can help you if you work hard in the reduction of your ignorance. The other gift then is, if you're a marketeer, it's all about mobile first now. I'm not saying that TV is not important. You will see that in other slides, I will talk about TV a lot. You need to embrace the mobile phone. You need to brief with the mobile phone first in mind. You need to brief your creative, even the production should have the mobile phone in mind. Everything that you do now should be mobile first. Then gone are the days where you only brief for TV, you only brief for radio. Even radio, we listen it on our phone. Even things that are radio or podcast or audio, we're listening to on our phone. Even visual, if it's just a picture or it's just an ad print, we might watch it on our phone. So it is mobile first. Brief with the mobile phone in mind. Stop briefing only TV. If you can, force yourself to brief mobile only and then go to other mediums. Next.
Sorry, just before you move on, is this a an agency conversation? Who are you speaking to when you say think mobile first? Who should initiate this? Is this a corporate conversation? Is this a marketing conversation? Is this a partner agency conversation? Who's meant to lead and who's meant to drive this narrative of move away from TV and start going mobile first?
It's both. I'm expecting the client who's got the money. Remember, the one who has the money tends to be the one who makes the final decision and tends to be the one who holds the power in the hierarchy of creative decision making. So the one who's in the top of the hierarchy, because they have money and because they call client, they must lead first. And what I'm hoping that a brave, courageous agency will also be able to nudge, persuade, influence the client to see things differently. So if the agency is adding value, they should be adding value by showing data that things are moving. You need to focus on the mobile phone, Android or iOS, and in Africa it's predominantly Android. So you have to be, even marketeers, I find it weird that the marketeers, even agency people, majority will have an iPhone, but the 90% plus of the market has an Android. And then they show examples on an iPhone, iPad, as if that's the market, or a MacBook Pro. I'm not saying that iOS is not a viable platform, but I'm just saying that look at the market that you're in. It's 90% plus Android. So why are you not focusing on Android as well? Why is your mock-up using phones that people are not using just because you are in the 1%? And now you are talking to yourselves, not to the 90%. So I think it's both. It is the client first who should lead. And then partly if you have a great agency partner, they should also be helping you move towards this direction. And then you start adding places like Facebook, Amazon, Google, who should also be influencing either agencies or clients towards this direction. So now I could even add the digital media tech companies, Facebook, Amazon, LinkedIn, or TikTok, you name it, or Google search or YouTube. They also now come into the party and they can also influence both the agency and the client on that mobile first matters. Next. So this is just for those people who don't know that mobile devices and smart devices and feature phones, prices are going down year on year. I mean, Orange recently in 15 countries has launched a $30 smartphone. In Kenya, Safaricom has launched a phone where you can only pay 20 shillings. That's like something like close to 2 cents or $1 a day. So imagine that people now can buy a phone and pay like lay by a phone, and you can pay it on 20 shillings, Kenyan shillings a day for a smartphone. So things are going down in pricing in smart devices. I know Vodacom, MTN, Safaricom, Orange are all working hard in reducing device pricing. I know like OEMs like Transsion, OEMs like Samsung, Huawei, they are working hard in bringing down the prices of smart devices. So you need to be thinking a lot about the world, especially Africa. It's a mobile phone first and then other devices. Next. And I know that the world as well is 50% of the world is offline. By the way, you need to remember that you still have 50% of the world that is offline. You have 800 million Africans that are offline. You have something like 350 million Africans that are online. 350 million Africans online, that's a lot of people that we can still touch with the mobile phone. You still have 800 million that are offline, which means TV, radio, billboard still matters. So I'm not saying TV does not matter. You will see in the other slides that I show you why I think TV still matters, but I'm also saying to you that start learning now the muscle of mobile phone. Start learning and exercising mobile first, now, rather than later. Next. Next slide. You can read these later. So the other gift. So now I've given you the first gift, second gift, third gift, which is round about mobile first. The fourth gift is around about things like segmentation, targeting, positioning still matter. So if you're a marketeer and you can't think who you're targeting, you have a problem. You need to know who your primary target audience is, who your bull's eye is. While you're targeting everyone, but you need to talk to a few and let that few talk to many. But sometimes you're talking to many, you're talking to everyone. But you need to be deliberate and intentional in saying, this is my target audience. This is my target market. And you need to know that. This is the brand positioning. You need to know that. Is it a value brand? Is it a price brand? Is it a premium brand? What is it? You need to know that. And then the most important thing as well is segmentation. I've used this one, which is something that is still top of mind for me, is the one on online. If you're online, there's ways you can segment the market. You can use demographics, you can use psychographics, you can use behavioral stuff, you can use a lot of other dimensions to segment. In here, I've used an example where if I have a segment of population that is online, 350 million plus, then I can segment it on those which is business to consumer or consumer to consumer. I can segment them on business to consumer. I can segment them also on devices. Those who are online with a smartphone, who don't have data struggles, who are middle and high income, who tends to be 25 years plus old. Then I can also segment it on those who are online but are hustling, but they have low to medium phones or feature phones to basic phones. They have low to incidental data usage. They are middle to low income. And you see the variables you can use. Then you can measure those who are doing business to business. And some of them, they're either small, medium enterprises, they're either medium enterprises, they are small or large businesses. Or people who have side hustles, they are working, but they have side hustles. There are many ways you can segment your target audience. You just need to decide how to segment yours. And then you need to remember, there's this audience that is offline, dark on mobile, but it doesn't mean they are not consuming. They've got radio, they've got TV, they've got billboards, they've got their neighborhoods, they've got the community, they've got word of mouth. That still works. They've got retail that they go to. So all those things that you need to be thinking about. So segmentation is something you should be thinking about. Targeting, you should be thinking about. And positioning are things that you should think about. But you need to remember that segmentation goes beyond demographics. But the segments that I like are the ones that are easily measured. I struggle with psychographic segmentation sometimes because I will include it as part of my segmentation, but on its own, I sometimes struggle that it's not easily measurable. So I try to lean more on segmentation models that are easy to measure, quantifiable, and we can hold people accountable. We can measure the growth easily. If the segmentation model is not measurable, it's a very difficult segmentation model. It's very intellectual, very academic, but it's not practical and usable. So your segmentation model must be practical and easy to use and easy to measure. Next. Next. So I had already told you that, I remember I said to you that mobile first matters, but now I wanted to show you something that TV still has a role. If you look at this graph, you can see that viewership habits are moving from TV to digital. You all know as well that when you're watching Ngubani Tatako, or when you're watching some Legacy, or you're watching Gomorrah, all of this stuff that I've been catching up on, you know that a lot of the activity is happening on your phone. You're consuming on your phone while you're watching. You're commenting on social media while you're watching. Sometimes you're laughing, not what is said on TV, but what is being said on your mobile phone. So you need both. It's not either or. And what we're learning more and more now, for example, is that you expand significantly your reach if, for example, you do YouTube plus TV. So it's not just YouTube only, it's TV plus. So it's TV plus YouTube. It's TV plus video. is TV plus billboard. So there's a lot now where you need to be more screen polygamous. So you must have polyamorous loyalty on screens. Stop being obsessed with only TV only. I see this sometimes a lot with agencies. I don't know why the agencies are still stuck on TV. When I ask questions, people tell me maybe it's the business model. Maybe it's how they make money. Maybe there's a lot of money that moves under the table on TV. Maybe there's a lot of money locked on production. Maybe, I don't know. So I'm not an expert as to why the obsession is only TV and why not other mediums. But as a marketer, if I were you, I'll be obsessing more with polygamous or polyamorous screen loyalty rather than monogamous TV loyalty. Next.
Sorry, Mzamo, just on this one, again, just a similar sentiment. Are you guys at YouTube or Google doing the work where, I don't want to use the word educate, but I'll use it in this instance, empowering the clients to understand that? Because I think if there's anybody who can drive this narrative, it would have to be the client. Because agencies, we've got our own KPIs. So earlier on, you mentioned that agencies do not make money. And when we shoot ads, it is the opportunity to make money. So how do you then balance what the agency's KPIs are and what's doing right for the client?
So what we're currently doing, for example, I know that like Facebook, Amazon, Google, there's even programs like Think with Google. And Think with Google is what you can go and blog online, and you can read a lot about why TV plus, why video, why online video plus TV matters. And then there's also sessions where even I at Google, we have client education sessions, we have masterclass sessions, webinars sessions. Also, we have a team at Google that only focuses on agencies. So people can reach out to that team within Google. It's an agency lead team, and it can empower the agencies as well, educate the agencies on how to present this to a client, how to use the data to prove effectiveness, efficiency, reach. We even have a YouTube specialist, even at Google, where the agency can reach out to a YouTube specialist, can reach out to the the client or Google agency lead. And then we've got also a team within Google that deals with the clients, whether it be FMCG or CPG or banking, retail. We've got people who deal with that specific pod or specific vertical. And so it is something that you can have. You just need to reach out and just proactively ask Google as well, proactively ask Facebook, proactively ask Amazon. All of them, they do have a team that can be able to educate you, whether it be TikTok or Instagram. They will have a team that will be able to bring data to this discussion. Next. So you can read some of these slides. That just shows that when you combine display and video, what results do you get? Then gift number 6 for me is that the things I've been thinking a lot about is that if you're a marketeer or in advertising, client or agency, the desk is a dangerous place to view the world. You just need to get out there. You need to still hang out with people. You need to go listen to what people say. For example, I don't drive sometimes, I just walk. I walk to the shopping center. I sometimes catch a taxi just to listen what people are talking about in the taxi. And I ask a lot of dumb questions so that I can learn what people are talking about. When I'm walking to a shopping center, I walk to a taxi rank, I just sit there and listen and ask questions, watch what people are doing, what they're saying, and then I combine it with data. So that when you combine that on the ground observations with the data that comes from quantitative analytics, the two together will make you a better marketeer. But if your obsession is only your desk and you learn everything on your desk, then you're a dangerous marketeer. Next. And then the other gift that I can give you is that it's art and science. So because it's art and science, the key thing is that marketing, as a marketeer, you need to live in the intersection between art and science. You need to embrace both. It's not either or, it's and. And you need to fall in love with art, you need to fall in love with the science. Marketeers who don't like science make bad marketeers. You need both now. You need to embrace both art and science. And that will make you a really great marketeer. And you need to live in that intersection between art and science. Next. So for example, now I've been reading a lot of books on affective neuroscience. I like this book a lot by Peng Seb. And I've been reading this other book, The Disordered Mind, What We Can Learn from Unusual Brains. And then you know that when Einstein says logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere, that immediately tells you that you need both. You need the art, you need the science, you need the logic, but you also need the irrational thought, you need the imagination, you need the left brain and the right brain. I'm not a proponent of you must only be right brain centric. I think you must be right and left brain centric. You must worship both. You must do all of these things. And that's why I'm encouraging everyone now. If you're going to start marketing now, you really need to embrace the art and science of marketing. You really need to fall in love with logic and imagination. You need to fall in love with data and creativity. You must embrace both. You must stop being lazy and read about neuroscience, read about biology, read about art, read about abstract art while you're reading about biology and about neuroscience. So you must do both now. As a marketer, your job, and as an advertising person and creative, you must expand your knowledge and stop only focusing on one thing. You must now focus on many other things as well, other than just that. So next slide. The other thing then is that the other gift, other than art and science, is that I'm more and more finding that the marketeers that we're grooming now have very low history or story understanding, very low historical context. The reason I say this, all the blunders that I'm seeing that are race-orientated, people insulting women, people insulting race, people insulting tribes, it's just lack of history. I truly believe that the degrees that people do now, history, politics, philosophy, economics, should be compulsory in your degree. You shouldn't graduate without having done history, philosophy, politics, and economics, because we make bad marketeers and creative people when we don't have historical context, when we don't have philosophical context, when we don't have political context, because everything we're doing has a historical context, has an anthropological context, and we need to start embracing history. Marketeers who don't like learning about history make poor marketeers in the long run. That's where you get all of this racial ignorance, you get all this gender ignorance, you get all this sexual orientation ignorance. It's because there's very little knowledge of history. People who don't know enough about this country, politics, will make bad marketing decisions, bad creative decisions, because you don't have historical context. Once you have historical context, it increases your empathy, your creative empathy. You start to know more. You start to make decisions differently. Once you know when Indians got here, why they got here, how Chinese got here, once you know Muslim culture, once you know what happens within Islam, you make different decisions. Once you know what happens in Hinduism, Buddhism, religion, history, philosophy, politics, once you know what's going on with EFF, DA, ANC, all these other political parties, it gives you a better context as a marketeer. You don't have to be political, but you can be politically aware. So next slide. So this basically, for me, when I studied all of those things, is just a sign that historical, political context is missing. Next slide. Someone asked me, what are some of the books that I recommend people should read? These are some of the books that I think people should read. These are the books that might decolonize your mind, might make you global, might make you worldly, might make you Afrocentric, might make you a Pan-Africanist, but might also make you more centered and grounded. Next. And once I've talked about these politics, all of those matters, the next phase for me then is that if I were to advise to all marketeers now, please embrace behavioral science. It's here to stay. So behavior matters. So start reading a lot of books about behavioral science, and then combined it with economics, combined it with sociology, combined it with anthropology. If I were to do a degree now, I would do a degree from social science, from commerce, and from science. I think that should be the degree now. It should have a combination of social science, commerce, and science. And that degree should create a more holistic person who can really help us solve these issues we're grappling with now. So the degree that is very engineering only, very commerce accounting only, that's why we have Enrons. That's why we have all these sagas about consultancy firms cheating us or doing unethical work. That's why we have all these companies like Steinhoff, all of those issues, allegedly doing wrong things, because we miss a degree that combines everything. That will make you more ethical. Next.
Sorry, before we move on, not to interrupt your lecture, but just on this, I think it's a perfect moment to mention this. So our next lecture coming up in a few weeks is going to be by Rory Sutherland, who's, I think, the father of behavioral science. So I think with that said, I think also that's going to be like a great opportunity for us to learn this topic of behavioral science and how people make decisions, which is critical.
Next slide. These are some of the books I read in behavioral science. You will see when you get the slides, like there's just some of the books that have shaped my understanding of behavioral science, or cognitive psychology, or behavioral psychology, or behavioral economics. So those are the books that I recommend. And if you read them, it will make you, it will also make you smarter. It will make you also make better decisions, write better briefs as well. Especially books like How Brands Grow. Very scientific grounded books like Nudge or Misbehaving or Thinking Fast and Slow. Even things like Manufacturing Consent. When the first time I read Noam Chomsky on manufacturing consent, it helped me a lot understand how media works. It helped me a lot understand how to write better briefs. So all of this is stuff that you're going to have to be willing to do the work, invest in it. Next, here are some of the things I would tell you that I've learned on behavioral science as well. Human beings are predictably irrational. All of us are predictably irrational, but we are predictable, but we are irrational. We know this because of the people we've dated and the people we broke up with. Many of those people, when we look back now, we ask ourselves, what the fuck? Why did I fall in love with this person? And you know that you're predictably irrational. The decisions that you make, the things you buy, and you just say, I liked it. It makes me feel warm. And that's just irrational. So we know that human beings are irrational. And that once you know that, you then know that you are not marketing to a rational person. You're marketing to an emotional person. You're marketing to feelings. And so you need to understand emotions. You need to understand feelings. Next. And then this is something that I've also learned in behavioral science, that human beings are truly status, dominance, power, gender, dick, balls, heaven, hell, hierarchy, pyramid dominance. There's always who's got better boobs than this one, who's got better height than this one, who's got a bigger dick than this one, who's got this and this. And human beings are inherently hierarchical, whether we like it or not. There's the alpha male, alpha female, there's status, power, wealth. Even in corporate, there's the CEO, owner, founder, and then there's the plebs in the bottom. Then there's the assistants. Even in marketing, there's the CMO at the top. Then there's the junior assistant, all the way brand manager, marketing director. That's a hierarchy. So we know that hierarchies exist. And to fight them, I don't know why. And we know that pecking order relative to matters. And yes, most people will say comparison is a thief of joy, but we love the thief anyway. So you might as well make peace with the fact that hierarchy exists. So as a marketeer, how do you work with or around that? Because human beings are hierarchical. Next. For example, the other thing, I think I've already talked about this, that when I go to a club, I observe that no one goes to the club with a full tank sign that, hey, look at my car, I've got petrol tank, I've got a petrol, or they take the petrol tank to the club. What are the chances of getting late if you have a petrol tank? But if you've got that Mercedes key, and if you've got that car, and you've got that expensive alcohol at your table, and it's a VIP table, and if you've got a money clip with some few notes in it, if you've got that bag or that clothes or that brand or those red bottoms, that's what I've seen seems to work. And those ones get detected earlier. And I've also noticed that the slay queens and the slay kings are the greatest detectors of hierarchy at a club. They are the masters, so I tend to interview them more than I interview everyone else because they're the great marketeers. They're the great behavioral psychologists because they seem to know quickly who's who in the hierarchy in the club. Next. Like, for example, you know that human beings, I've already said, they are predictably irrational. There are 7 core primal emotions in human beings. There's rage, there's fear, there's lust. Then if you use them as affective feelings, you know that rage will turn into anger, pissed off. Fear will turn to anxiety. Lust will turn to horny. And that's what we're really most of the time selling to. We're selling to these emotions. We're invoking these emotions. We are really invoking anything else. We're actually working around these primal emotions or feelings or affective feelings. That's what we're doing. So once you learn this as a behavioral scientist or you learn this as a marketeer, you can then start knowing that these are the stuff that I need to be thinking about as a marketeer or as a creative. Next. For example, I was learning about emotions recently, and there's a Steinbeck triangular theory of love. And you know that if you have consumers, a consumer must be committed to your brand, like a pig is to bacon. When a consumer is involved, like a chicken is to an egg, that consumer is easy to lose. But the consumer who's committed to your brand will forgive you, will be high on trust, high on consideration, high on unearned media. They will recommend you to others. But one who likes you intimately, is passionate about you, when something else comes up, they will leave you. It's the same thing with relationships. If your relationship is only full of passion and intimacy, but no commitment, that relationship is not going to last. A relationship has to be also embedded in commitment. So you are trying to do the same with the brand. You are trying to promote liking, infatuation, but you're also trying to promote commitment. Because if there's no commitment, that love and infatuation and liking is empty. You're going to lose that person quickly. The attrition rate will be very high. Churn will be very high. That's why I've always thought about like the commitment that the pig brings to the bacon is amazing and should be celebrated. The chicken still has a way to get out of it in that breakfast. They can just lay an egg and still be okay, unless of course then they are needed also as part of that breakfast. But the key thing for me is commitment, liking, passion, all 3 matters, not just one. If you choose one, choose commitment. The more committed your partner is to you, even if they don't love you, it doesn't matter. Commitment, they will fall in love over time. But if they're committed, that's what you need. Over time, you need commitment more than just liking and infatuation. But ideally, you need all 3. But if you can't get all 3, work for commitment. Next. And the other thing I learned, for example, in behavioral science is that human beings have polygamous loyalty. This thing of us trying to be the only one used is flawed. Human beings have polygamous loyalty. In every category, human beings have 2 or 3 minimum brand repertoire choices in that category. If you go to toothpaste, I'm not going to leave the store just because Sensodyne or Colgate or Mentadent P is not there. I've got 3 choices I can choose from. I'll take the one out of those 3 choices. If I go buy a washing powder, I'm thinking MAC or Ariel or Omo or Skip. That's already 3 or 4. And more or less they work, they remove stains. So I'll buy the one that's there. The only time you start moving to monogamous loyalty is when you start talking about low-income consumers. The lower the income, the higher the risk of choosing something that doesn't work. It's just, that risk is just something you don't want to do when you have low income. So you would rather stick with the brand that works. Also, the other place that has monogamous loyalty is where it's drugs, pharmaceutical. When people are addicted to a drug, like when your grandmother used Boston or Panado or Grandpa, they tend to stick to that all their lives. And they tend to feel like their headache is not going to end until they have that powder rather than a tablet, as if it's not paracetamol that's in there. But still, that's mostly pharmaceutical, tend to have monogamous loyalty. Drug addictions tend to have monogamous loyalty, but until you run out of money, a drug addict will take any drug to get the high anyway. So they also have polygamous loyalty. So what you should be fighting for as a marketeer is not monogamy. What you should be fighting for is being numbered in the top 3 of that person's consideration list. You are fighting for consideration to be in the consideration list, to be in the top 3. In that top 3, you want to be number 1 in that consideration list. You want to be in that person's consideration list rather than fighting for being the only one. It's highly unlikely. Even human beings, by the way, there's enough studies that show that there are animals that are monogamous, there are animals that are polygamous. Same with human beings. There are human beings who can be monogamous, there are human beings who are just polygamous. They're just publicly not announcing it, but they are polygamous. Cheating, that's another form of polygamy. So you can see that even with human beings, polygamy exists, monogamy also exists, but there seems to be more polygamy than monogamy. Next slide. There's a new model, for example, that Google has published, which if, most of you, it's called decoding decisions or decision model, or it's a decoding decision model or decision model. And you can find it on Think with Google, and you can just Google Think with Google decision model, and you will find that there's a new ways of thinking about how people make decisions, how people need exposure first as a trigger, and then how it's messy in the middle, how people make decisions, very messy in the middle, and then a purchase is made, and then it's experienced. But you can read all about this when you explore it, and you can just go on Google Podcast, or you can go on Google Think with Google, and you will find a lot of stuff about this model on how consumers make decisions. Next. And the other way to think about decision making as well in behavioral science is that you still need a brand. Brands are the easiest ways to exposure. You still need a brand, you still need a logo, but you need to remember a brand and a logo is not enough without value. And value is the promise, is the why, and price is what people talk about in the absence of value. So a brand on its own is not enough, so you still need to offer value. Those are some of the things that I've been learning on behavioral science. That's why I love behavioral science. It has made me think differently about marketing, think differently about how to persuade, nudge consumers. The next slide. Next. The other thing that matters is that you will notice that as in your career as a marketeer, you are also a brand. So you need to have a reputation, but your reputation for every brand is normally built on 2 things: on winning, which is delivering amazing results, and strong values. If you look at almost all the people that we assess, former President Zuma, Tiger Woods, Armstrong, the cyclist, everyone that we assessed, Mandela, you name them, their reputation hinges on, are they competently winning? Are they doing it with strong values? And by the way, most human beings tend to be some are incompetent and poor on strong values. Especially now, we look at politicians and we tend to see lots of signs of incompetence wrapped in unethical practices. And that reputation is flawed. And now what you want as a marketer with your career is be grounded on competency and winning, but also do it with strong values. Don't sell your soul for money. So these two, you need both. Same with the brand. To have a strong brand reputation, you need to win as a brand. You need to deliver the promise. If you say you're going to do something, then deliver it. Then you need to wrap it up with strong values, respect of the consumer, respect, integrity, all of those things. The two matters. Next. The other thing then as a gift is that trust matters. I sometimes think that we are not in trust management. I think we are in doubt management, because what kills a relationship is doubt. I've noticed this even in my own relationships, that the higher the doubt, the lower the love, the lower the commitment, the lower the engagement. So what we're trying to do as marketeers is manage doubt, is make sure that consumers don't doubt us, is to make sure that consumers don't doubt the brand, don't doubt the company. And that equation basically means that trust is competency times consistency over time. It's competency times consistency over time. I think that as marketeers, we are in a doubt management program that helps manage trust. And if you don't manage doubt, sooner or later, trust will decline. Sooner or later, engagement will decline. Consideration will decline. Then sales will start declining anyway, and brand equity will start declining. So you just need to work out on trust and doubt for your career and for your brand and for your business. Next, even for your own relationships. So this was another recent study I saw that talks about trust impacts buying, and a good reputation may get people to try a product, but unless I come to trust the company behind the product, I will soon stop buying it. So you will see that people put a lot of emphasis on trust and its impact on sales. Next. And these are some of the things that when we talk about trust is that ethics matter. So you do need to not have what in behavioral science called sludges, where you make it difficult for people to unsubscribe. You make it difficult for people to exit the contract. You tell lies. You do evil. And ideally, you should do no evil. And you do false advertising. You make the beggar look bigger than it actually is. And those things irritate me. Those pictures that make things bigger than what they are. And then when you go buy it, it's tiny. That's just misleading and unethical. And also what you do with kids, marketing to kids, you need to be sensitive. Most of you, some of you are parents, some of you have nieces and nephews. You don't want to be unethical to kids. You don't want to be lying and misleading kids. So there's a lot of ethics that you need to apply in advertising. There's a lot of ethics you need to apply even in your own brand. I hate those brands that they change the bottle and then they still make it look like it's the same quantity. Especially I saw this in baby food. It's no longer 1 liter. It's like 900 mils, but now they make it look like 1 liter. That's just misleading. And that's just unethical. And they don't even tell you. At least they should tell you. And they still make the price bigger and higher. So they make more margins, but they lie to me. So that's unethical. So I would say that. And then the last thing for me, as a marketeer, I need to say this. If someone is in the agency world, I have never been promoted. I have never gotten a bonus on winning awards. This award shit, for me, I don't get paid more for winning more awards. That's just nice to have. It's a cherry on top. And I dislike the agencies that win awards, but they will flight that one ad in the evening at shoulder time, 1 a.m. when we're sleeping, and then they will submit it for awards. They will put that one ad in a print that we won't even see, and then they will submit it for an award. That for me is unethical. That for me is wrong. And that's really unethical. And it's a practice that needs to stop, because you didn't really flight that ad. You didn't really put that advertising out. Just because you flighted it once in some obscure time with just low ARs or audience ratings or GRPs, and then you win the award, I really dislike that. And I think that is unethical and it needs to talk. And also the clients encourage it. So it's not just the agencies do it. The client do not stop the agency to do it. If I were to find out my team or agency did it, I will write to the Luris. I will write to the Kens and tell them to pull that award and tell them we don't deserve that award because that ad we didn't use and that the consumer didn't benefit from that ad. It's just being more ethical. Stop selling your soul. Let's not sell our souls for awards. Let's not sell our souls for market share. Next slide. Now I talk about diversity, that if you don't intentionally, deliberately, proactively include, you will unintentionally exclude. So it's very important that you embrace diversity, you embrace inclusion. It really matters. Even the way you do advertising. I will show you some of the briefs. The way I write the briefs at the end, a brief must have diversity and inclusion and unstereotyping requirements. You must tell the agency what your diversity, inclusion, and stereotyping requirements are in the brief. Don't leave it to the agency. You need to be deliberate, you need to be proactive, you need to be intentional if you're going to unstereotype the user or the consumer, if you're going to unstereotype LGBTQ community, if you're going to unstereotype women, you need to be a lot more deliberate, intentional, and proactive in the brief. And if you don't do that, then you're going to make these mistakes that other companies that you already know have made recently. Next slide. There's one question that people ask me, can you bring your whole self to work? I don't think you can, actually. I think work it's not your work, it's not your company. Maybe if you're the founder of the company, maybe you can bring your whole self, maybe. But once it gets listed, even the founder cannot bring their whole self. There's regulation, there's governance, there's shareholders, there's the board, there's the non-executive board. There's a lot of other people who are governing you, managing you. So there is no way you're going to be able to do that. So unfortunately, I don't believe that you can bring your whole self. I think you can bring your best self to work. You can bring your best self, but expecting that you must bring your whole self. Let's say your whole self is you are homophobic. Please, you keep your homophobia to yourself. Don't bring it to work. We don't need to hear that. We don't need to know that. You just keep it to yourself. Let's say you hate religious people. There are certain things just keep to yourself. It's unethical for you to, let's say you are a womanizer and you are chauvinistic. Those are not the things that you should be really saying, no, I want to bring my whole self to work. Please keep your shit to yourself. Some shit is ugly. We don't need to hear it. That's why I don't think you can bring your whole self to work. I think you can bring your best self to work. But to want to bring your whole self, please. Or if you want to do that, start your own company. Start your own university. Start your own shit. But to try and think you can do that in a place that you don't own, they pay you a salary, please, I think you're dreaming and you're expecting too much. Next. I've already spoken about this. Next slide. You must also remember, like in diversity and inclusion, there's something I've learned recently that in behavioral science, the brain, the parts that light up in the brain where there's social pain are the same parts that light up when there's physical pain. That's amazing. So you need to be thinking hard about what you do, what you say, how you say it. So you need to really think hard. So can I please just take a 1-minute break and attend to my daughter, and then maybe pause here before I go to the other lessons or gifts that I wanted to give, and answer any questions from now, from when I started to now. Can I just please have 1 minute and listen to what my daughter has to say? And the answer is now. So
Okay, guys, I think we can take an official 5-minute break, and then we'll resume with Mzamo's lecture. But don't run away. Please come back. Or are there any questions? Or somebody would like something from Mzamo when he comes back, or anything? Okay. Yes, Paul. What are your 2 questions? I don't know if everybody can see the questions or it's just myself and Mzamo can see the questions. But how are you guys feeling about the lecture so far? Yeah, maybe type it, because I think the audio thing might be disruptive in the lecture. Okay, I will check your question, Nozi. Thanks, Bonginkosi and Ntinyiko.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. Sorry, my daughter had, as you all know, like if she says I need to speak to her, then I have to. She's the head of the house.
Yes. Wait. I need to do something here. Oh,
Okay, are there?
yeah, there's a question. Mpo, you can
Okay,
ask.
sorry, I
Cool.
think there's a bit of a lag.
Okay, no problem.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks for unmuting me. My questions tend to be a bit long, and typing all of that is a bit of a mission. Thanks, Mzamo, for the session. I think your ideas are always just alternative, to put it nicely, and interesting. I've got 2 questions, and I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I wanted to go back to what you said about Black marketers or marketeers. And I wanted to understand what you think some of the barriers are to us as Black marketeers not being able to fully represent, ourselves, whether it's imagery or its products, fully. If I think just at the top of mind from my experience, like I would say, mostly you get an asset from global, and you're supposed to tweak it, but when you tweak it, you have a very small budget. So including Black imagery or a full representation of the country is very limited, right? Even like recording voiceovers, you have a certain budget, you probably can't do it sometimes. So, and I also think about organizational culture. Some organizations are quite white dominated at the core. And you also have a lot of people who have done things a certain way for like a number of years, and you come to the organization, you sort of want to just change things up and sort of use a represented imagery, and those things are frowned upon, and it's not part of the culture, and you're sort of introducing ideas that are not core to the business. So I'll first let you answer that, and then I'll proceed to my next question.
I would say, from experience, I think that the reason sometimes the Black marketeers are risk averse, I think I said this on my part 1 lecture, is that I think we are broke financially, and we depend heavily on the salary, and so we kissing ass basically, and we scared to make bold decisions because you want to keep your job. And so we are risk averse partly because we are financially not free. So we haven't done enough work in being financially free. So that affects then how bold the decisions that we make. So I think it partly there is a part in there that's just the fear of losing the job, the fear of your boss, and also just that fear stands in the way of challenging even work from global. We shouldn't take global work and cut and paste and just launch it in the company. We should be able to modify it, adapt it, and make it suit the market. But sometimes because we're shit scared of global, because we're messing our jobs, we want to keep our jobs. So there's an element of fear, anxiety, and which then leads to risk aversion. And I think we need to more and more learn to be more financially free while being employed. So that's why we have to have multiple hustles. We have to have money and be financially free. The second part for me, I think it has a lot to do with self-awareness and self-confidence. I find that sometimes some of the junior marketeers have low self-esteem and have low self-awareness, and they also have they have low awareness of their own history, being Black, or what Black people are up to, what's happening in the township, what's happening in the rural areas, what's happening with low income, middle, high income Black, what's happening. They themselves are disconnected from that world. They are sheltered and they disconnected from that world. And unfortunately, because the industry tends to hire people who come from privileged or privilege, there are Black people who are also privileged, who are sheltered by their privilege, and they know very little about what's going on with the 90%, the belly of the Black people, which is the majority. So they can't speak with confidence. They can't speak with surety and confidence about the people that they themselves are disconnected with. And then some of them can't even speak the mother tongue. So then it makes it even harder to represent a mother tongue that you don't even speak. So those are some of the things that I see stand in the way of even the Black marketeers themselves. Then there's a part where it's just assimilation, where you're thinking you're going to do comfortable, easy work. As long as your white boss or your non or Black boss says it's okay, then you tick the box. What do they know anyway? Do they know better? So if they just say it's okay, then at least your career is secured. You're going to get promoted. You're going to get the bonus while doing shitty work. But as long as the boss is happy. So there's a part where people are just kissing us and sucking up as well. So those are some of the things that I have observed are the things that stands in the way done by us as Black people, our own goals.
Okay, sure. Okay. I'm gonna give you a practical example, right? And I just need your step by step on what you do physically or literally. This is my last question. So there was a product. I won't mention which one it is, but it's a skin lightening product. And I think a group of us as marketeers sort of spoke to the business leaders and said, we don't believe this should be something that the business adopts, which is a product from Asia. Purely because there are a lot of politics around light skin and dark skin, as in South Africa and many African countries, and we spoke about the ethics of it. We spoke about different elements on why we shouldn't adopt it in the business. But that was dismissed. The case didn't actually go further, and the product is available on shelf today. But in that instance, if you're saying that we should be courageous, what do you actually do when the business leaders disagree with how unethical it is, and if it actually offends Black people, or it actually heightens up how we think of ourselves as whether the lighter skin is the better skin, and fueling those types of stereotypes?
You just reminded me, for example, in India, when I worked in India, there's a product there called Fair and Lovely. and I think it's by Unilever. And at that time when I worked there, I was not consciously aware on the issues of skin lightening. Now I'm more consciously aware. And now I can anchor it on historical context, on political context, on just cognitive development consciousness, on racism. So I can anchor it now on many things. And so if I were to be in a company that has that, I would first have to really have a clear narrative and story as to why this matters. Why historically, politically, sociologically, anthropologically, why this thing is wrong. And why it matters that as a business, slowly we need to exit out of this. And by the way, there are products within our market that have skin lightening agents in them, but they're not called skin lighteners. But once you read the ingredients, you can see that their role is to slow down melanin reproduction, or is to get rid of melanin. That's another form of skin lightening done differently. Or so there's that. In that way, for me, I would have said, first, I found in companies like those ones, blacks themselves are not united. That's what I've always found. I say this with a practical example. I was once in a company where I went and I had a meeting with a few blacks who I felt had influence and power. And I agreed with them that we're going to go to a leadership meeting, and we agreed strategically, this is how we're going to talk about this subject. And I'm going to start the subject because I'm known as a shit steerer and people say I'm controversial. So let me throw it out there and I'll throw it hard. And then we strategize that the others will come in and then they will defend, enlighten, make this topic better. I went in thinking I had my crew with me. I did what I agreed to do. That whole other crew I had agreed with didn't support me. And I was left alone. Actually, it took a white liberal female to support me. So there is a part where us as Black people, we're not united in our own narrative. So if we are going to make these fights, we better be united in a united front. Then the second part is nothing changes without allies. You need allies. So you need allies with power and influence. If in the organization the allies predominantly are white males or white females, we need allies. So you need to figure out there, who are the allies? Who can we bring into our fight? Who can fight with us? They have global influence, regional influence. They've got local influence. And then we put the package and go fight with the allies. But to go fight alone when you don't have power and influence, what's the point? That's a toy without a flag, a protest without a flag. So I think you need to be strategically thinking, how do we write this narrative in a way that is so clear, that shows historical, and also sometimes what I found we do as Black people is a mistake. We become overly emotional. Your argument does not get made better by emotions. Yes, it's an emotional subject, but hold on to those emotions dearly. You will make illogical arguments. Let's put emotion in check and let's argue, because we are arguing with people who are not emotionally invested in the topic. We're going to lose when we argue with people who are mentally only invested in a topic of race, and they are not emotionally and spiritually invested. We are emotionally and spiritually invested, but we can't win it only with that brain, the intuition, the gut, the emotion, the feelings. Feelings with this race debate is not going to win you an argument, because the other person is just going to say, but we've got an ROI, we've got revenue, we've got gross margin, we've got market share. It employs people. You're going to lose 50 jobs. You're going to lose 100 jobs. Do you want to do that? You're not going to win that argument with a feeling and an emotion. So we're going to have to also start strategically thinking hard about how to write narratives that are more objective, then wrapped in emotion, feelings, but also strongly well argued. Then go find allies with power and influence, rope them in, and then make the circle bigger. Then we go fight as a collective, not just alone. So, and it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. You're not going to win this overnight. It's taken Unilever a long time to say, I think they're going to remove Fair and Lovely in India, or they're going to remove skin lightness. It's taken a while, like even in India. I don't know here in South Africa if the Pond's perfect color complex, which for me sounds like more sometimes like a skin lightener, whether there will be changes even in that. And so, but it takes time to make those changes because you have to make them within the context of that business is there to make revenue. That business is there to make profit, but now you are nudging and persuading the business to make ethical profits, ethical revenue. But you can't think it's just going to happen overnight. It's an evolution, and you must be in it for a long haul. You must not fight fights that you just fight in or effect and then stop. So that's how I would argue it, and that's what I think most of the time we should be doing.
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thanks, Mzamo. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Mpho. And then just before we move on, there's the last question. I'd like you to answer it very quickly. It's from Nozi from your previous slides, where she was asking about digital marketing and mobile first. So her question is that she feels frustrated that she gets turned down, or predominantly if you're in marketing but not into digital marketing, or you don't know much about digital, people get turned down. So therefore the question is, how does she enter digital marketing without having worked in digital per se? How can she arm herself to become digitally equipped?
Okay, there are definitely things that you can do. For example, what I did when I was at Nike and we were doing World Cup 2010, I started thinking, how do we experiment with telco? So we went to South Sea as a team. And at that time, South Sea was the challenger. And at Nike, we liked challenges. And so we went to partner and learn about the mobile phone. So there's ways you can do this where you partner. Go to a telco, do a campaign and learn about the mobile phone. Learn about digital market, how they do how they do CVM, how they do those things. So I learned some of those things while listening to South Sea, while listening to their CMO, while at Nike experimenting. The other way is there are a lot of digital courses that you can go through that are free. For example, Google does digital for digital skills for Africa. And that whole module is free and you can learn it at your own pace. There's even apps. There's an app called Primer and you can download that app and it will teach you about things you need to know about marketing. You can subscribe to podcasts and you can do something like Think with Google. And Think with Google, you can read a lot and learn a lot, but you're gonna have to be willing to do the work. You're gonna have to be willing to do the training. And then you're gonna have to start, even in the role that you're in, start experimenting with 5% of the budget, 1% of the budget. Start experimenting because you need a portfolio of evidence that shows others what you've done in the digital space. Because if you want me to hire you, for example, people who come and want a job at Google, I do want to know, do you know the user, but do you also know the digital product? You don't have to be an expert, but I need to know how much effort you've made in understanding them, in experimenting with them. For example, when you do Facebook or you do TikTok, you do YouTube, I'll ask you, have you ever started a YouTube channel? What's stopping you starting a YouTube channel and learning about YouTube analytics? That's another way of learning about digital marketing. You don't have to go to a class or school for that. You can just start a YouTube channel and start learning and use it as a learning tool and start learning about YouTube analytics. You can have, some of you have side hustles. Then I can ask you, did you try Google My Business? You can try Google My Business for free. And then you can try ads, workshops for free. All of that stuff is free. Facebook has free lessons. Amazon has free. So there's a lot of stuff you can learn online that's free that will improve your digital skills. Then you've earned the right to start applying to these digital places because you've done something. Even people who use Facebook, don't just use it for fun. Use it to demonstrate as a marketer you understand how the tool works. Buy ads there. Buy it for 10 Rand, 20, just to experiment. Then you can show people, I know what is going on. I know I have a blog. I've started a blog. I've started things. Then you've done the work without even you realizing that you didn't need to join a digital marketing company to do digital marketing. You can demonstrate that while you're working in the job that even does not embrace digital. I hope that helps.
Yes, and then just another question from Linda Zwani. Linda, if you can just unmute yourself.
Hi, Mzamo. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question in terms of how let's say, the marketing industry, if you look at countries like China, how they're evolving. How do you, as a marketer in South Africa, I don't know, basically enable yourself to do the very same thing without, I don't know, imposing fear on brands to do the very same thing? Because a lot of brands tend to stay traditionally on their traditional practices. So how do you then ensure your client, that if you take on a challenge, for example, like let's use Holocaust advertising in events or buildings. How do you ensure that they'd still have value, but still not be scared to invest in that idea?
I think where, Linda, I found sometimes, even with the agencies or junior people, is that you get so excited by a revolution and you forget that people are moved slowly. Change doesn't come quickly with people. And therefore, there is something in behavioral science called clinical trials or random trials or small experiments. In Silicon Valley, they talk about dog fooding or cat fooding or fish fooding or experiments, and they launch things in small samples, and then if it works, then you scale it. And I think sometimes if you want to bring about change, you need to remember that a revolution might make people resist that change. But if you do an evolution and you slowly introduce something and you do experiments, you do trials and you do pilots, the other way of winning clients or winning people is convert that idea you have and say, let's do a pilot. Let's do a trial. Let's do it only in Soweto, Spruit View only, or Katlehong only. But that's a pilot. And what you're hoping, when it works, then you can roll it out to more places. Then you can roll it out, but stop trying to think that you will bring about radical, revolutionary change to a place that things are working. People don't like change, particularly conservative people. Then you have extreme people who are high on openness. They want change, but they want radical, revolutionary change. No, you also have to win those people over slowly. You can't use your way of doing things that we must go straight to radical, straight to revolutionary. No, with other people, they like evolution. They like slow change. They like small trials. They like pilots. So if I encourage people, I would say, if you think it's bold and revolutionary, pilot it, trial it, persuade and nudge the client to do something small as an experiment. Then it won't cost much. At least still 80% or 90% of the budget is still covering the core revenue. Why there's play money? Then ask for play money, 5%, 1%, we play. And then you can take that play once it works and you can prove it works and then scale it.
All right, thank you very much.
I think we can go back to so the next slide. So you all know this, and it's something that you all know that as a man, it took me a long time to figure out that actually equity is what is required to bring about gender equality. That means for me is that there must be equal opportunity and equal access for women as well. And then it is up to the woman to decide whether they do that or not. But there must be equal access and equal opportunity. So we need equal access and opportunity. The next one is on creativity. So we've already talked about the importance of creativity and storytelling. There's a few things I want to talk about when it comes to creativity and storytelling, that you are in a business of creativity, you are in the business of storytelling. The universe is made of stories, not atoms. So you know that already. So the next slides then a few things about creativity and storytelling. There's data that proves that the highest ROI, 50 to 80% of ROI is from the creative. So the creative matters. Now, to get the creative right, here are some of the things that you need to think about. The next. So you need to remember, this is something that as people who are in this industry, we forget this. Especially marketeers, clients are actually sensitive people. Creative people are fragile, sensitive souls. Some of them are dyslexic, some of them suffer from depression, some of them suffer from anxiety, fear, schizophrenia, bipolar, disorders. There's a lot of mental health going on in there. And it's something that all of us, we need to stop being assholes, especially clients. Be kind, be nice. Stop mentally being toxic and pathological with your agencies, because creative people are sensitive people. And if you want to get great work, please treat people humane and don't be narcissistic. Remember that people have mental health issues. Remember that sometimes your behavior will trigger a mental disorder. So please, it is important while you're dealing with creative, you also think about mental health. You also think about being respectful while being honest. The next slide. I know that this industry is full of people that they believe that to lift inhibitions, which is what creativity is, a lifting of inhibitions, they have to do cocaine, they have to do cannabis, they have to drink lots of coffee, they have to do lots of cocktails. Just remember, this industry numbs a lot. And when you are being an asshole, you are driving people to numb even more. So you are responsible for also helping people with their mental health. I am not saying that these four things, cocktails, cocaine, coffee, cannabis, are the right things to lift inhibitions, but I see them a lot in this industry. I don't encourage them. There must be other ways to lift inhibitions than heavily relying on drugs. But I see it a lot in this industry, and I think it's something we need to talk about more. It's something that we need to openly talk about and discourage. Next slide. So someone asked me about brief writing. These are some of the things. I read a quote once that said, a creative brief is the most sacred of all sacred ed documents, because everything, the greater the brief, the greater the creative. A bad brief, bad creative. You can't save the creative. You can't save the thing with that is written badly, badly told, and then you want the agencies to do a great job on something that's badly written. The other thing that I always talk about when it comes to the brief is please be brief. That's why it's called a brief. I've read 7-page briefs, 3-page brief. Why can't it be just 1 page? And why can't it be 1.5 page? Ideally, 1 page. My brief at Nike, when I joined Nike, was in a post-it note. It was in a business card. It said, the front page, it said win. The back page said World Cup. That was the brief. Win World Cup. That was it. I didn't have a long brief. And I asked, do you have another 2 pages? They said, no, that's the brief. Win World Cup. We're done. So go now and win World Cup. So I'm just saying that the shorter the brief, the better. And if you cannot make it short, it means you don't know what you're talking about. If you can't say it in a post-it note, then you're not clear or you don't know what you're doing. And then some of these things you can read for yourselves on what are the things that I sometimes would like to see in a brief. Those are some of the bullet points I've listed. Then you can use those as some of your things that when you're writing your brief that you can then, but the only key thing that I want to drum in, be brief and be gone. And say it quickly and say it fast and be able to say it with a story and be able to add visuals, be able to add the user, be able to take the agency's imaginations far away so that they can then come back with you with a great strategy and a great big idea. Next. Next, I've already covered this in the brief. The other thing I always see in briefs, I hate it, but I've seen in some briefs, People use the word, it must go viral. That's nonsense, because who knows how things go viral? Who knows? No one knows how things go viral. No one knows even how Jerusalem went viral. Even Master KG and Nom Mzamo didn't know that Jerusalem was going to go viral. It was going to become a global hit. It was going to be, everyone was going to be dancing. No one knows that. And for you to be writing in the brief, things must go viral. That's just, I struggle with that. I don't understand it. I don't understand whether you even know what makes things viral. If you don't know, who else knows? Just do great work, and the consumer will decide. And remember, a bad song cannot be saved by even a great singer. Even great singers don't know that they are producing a hit. They hope and wish, but they don't know. And now when a song becomes a hit, that's great, but no one really knows for sure that their song is going to become a hit. And you can't go in with go viral in mind, a hit in mind. You're just going to do bad work. I don't believe in this thing, things must go viral, because I just believe do great work. And if it's great, the consumer will vote for it and it will travel. Next. And also, please do remember, you still need to put some money in it. Even if it's a great creative, you still need reach, you still need frequency. You need to understand media. You need to understand media investment. You need to understand media ROI. So there's no point in just having a great creative that we don't see, we're not exposed to, and we're not exposed to 3 times, or we're not exposed to it effectively and efficiently. So media matters. It's not just a great creative, it's a great creative plus a strong media investment. Next slide.
Sorry, Mzamo, just before we go on, similar to the digital marketing question, so for this context, where would one go? How would you go about learning about media and the various concepts within?
Okay, the way I was lucky, I used to be head of media for Africa at Unilever, but even before then, what I did, I aligned myself with media agencies. I found a few people who could teach me about media. And I was lucky in that Unilever at my time, I don't know now, was truly a school, the University of Marketing. They had a module and a course on media. And we learned a lot about media. We learned a lot about what GRPs mean, what ARs mean, what shoulder time, prime time mean. And they invited like DSTV, SABC, radio to come and educate us about radio, about the effectiveness of radio, effectiveness of TV, how you measure impact on TV, how you measure paid media versus public broadcaster, what the differences are. At the moment, if your company is not investing in that, I would say go online. There's a lot of YouTube clips now on media. There's a lot of even MIT, Stanford, Harvard, or Gibbs, or UCT. There's a lot of content on media now that you can learn about media without even leaving your desk. And then go and find people in OND, ONM, all these companies and media shops, all of them that do media, and find people who can teach you there. Find a mentor and a coach. I found a mentor and coach, and I know a few people in the media agencies I can call and ask. Even in digital marketing, I know digital agencies, digital marketing, I learned that as well online. Same thing, I learn it online and I go find a coach, find a mentor to teach me about these subjects that I know very little about. Next. And remember, it's always paid media, owned media, and media. So you are always operating your creativity around what you pay for, what the consumer rewards you with, which is owned media, and then the media that you own, the media channels that you own, how you use them well, how you integrate them in your media planning, that also matters. Next. This is the stuff that I was talking about. For example, I was listening to YouTube video storytelling or video storytelling. The recommendation is that stop the old method of muscle memory from TV where you lead in, you build up, you climax, then offer, then tara. Now you start high. If you watch a lot of the Netflix or HBO or all of them, they give away the series up front. You kind of have an idea what's going on. You know what's going to happen. Then you take people through the unexpected shift, the multiple picks. Then more the story evolves. But just brand upfront, the solution upfront. And the higher the brand visibility and the solution upfront, then you repeat it, the higher your brand recall will be, and the higher the persuasion will be. So stop telling stories the old way. The traditional story arc doesn't work anymore. So use the new way of telling stories. Next. And the other thing that we're learning about creativity now is keep it simple, brand upfront, frequently, and what you want the person to do. Action with intention upfront. Don't hide it. Remember, we don't have time to be decoding your brand. It can be a Morse code. It can be, you need to know that we've got more important things to think about other than thinking about decoding your advert or your creativity. So the more simpler it is, the higher the ad recall. The more simpler, the more the brand upfront, the higher the ad recall. If you're gonna make it complicated, you lose us. So you need less is more. Even with display advertising, less is more. Even with billboards, I sometimes am driving or walking, I see a whole billboard that looks like a paragraph page. Who's gonna read that? Keep it simple and keep fewer lines and stop trying to make the billboard look like a print ad. Next. The other thing that you think about with creativity is you need distinctive assets. And you need distinctive assets even in your ads. There are certain things in your ads that shouldn't change. Just because you get bored, it doesn't mean the consumer gets bored at the same rate as you. The consumer doesn't get bored faster than you. Because it's your job, you're thinking about it a lot. You then think that the consumer is also bored. No, the consumer doesn't get bored. What we mean by distinctive assets, if you go to the next slide, you will see that there are certain shows. I always like to use James Bond as the kind of film that has been there from the 1960s to now, but it has amazing distinctive assets. There's that white male, that's a distinctive asset. There's the gun, there's the martini, there's the car, there's the gorgeous lady. All of those ones are distinctive assets. You know you're gonna get them. You've got gadgets. You know you're gonna get the scientist who's clever. That stuff, and then you're gonna have a villain. You know those things exist in James Bond and they don't change. But now the last James Bond I watched, for example, they unstereotype the woman. Instead of just being a bikini woman, now she's kicking ass. Now she's a detective. She's super smart. She's clever. She's also saving James Bond. You see now, they're starting to change the narrative to unstereotype the woman so that it's not just a woman in a bikini. It's just now a clever, sophisticated, highly educated woman who can fight, who can kick ass. So all of that. Same thing, when you watch Barbie, I've got 3 daughters. Watch Barbie. Barbie is consistent, and then you end up buying Barbie blanket, Barbie duvet, Barbie house, Barbie this, and they are very consistent treatment of Barbie. And that's what we call distinctive assets. Your advertising, your product must have things that don't change. Then you work around that because our brains use those shortcuts to figure out what is going on in your content. If you have a piece of content that constantly changes, that's really exhausting because it means I'm going to have to do the work all the time. When you watch a soapy, for example, it's probably only 20 minutes. There are certain things in a soapy that don't change in generations. You know them, and even if you miss it for a whole week and you come back again, you still feel like you're at home because there are certain things that don't change. And that's what we mean by distinctive assets. Next.
So Mzamo, just a question, why then in terms of brand building, why do we keep chopping and changing stuff? Primarily, I think this is mostly driven by when there's a new human resource in the helm or at the helm, usually then we lose sight of actually there's a bigger picture here, which is the brand. It's got nothing to do with what I'm doing. In fact, I like the way Elizabeth from Unilever explained it. So the way she explained it was that her role, in understanding her role, is that when she walks into Unilever, it's like the core of the image that's being painted is already there. All she has to do, without changing everything, is just throw in a few strokes, her few, paintbrush strokes to the image. Yes, you will see her contribution, but it's not about her contribution per se, it's about this bigger picture thing.
Yeah, I think I've noticed in instances where I made mistakes, one, it was my ego. Secondly, it was my boredom. Thirdly, it was my need to want to do something different. It was my boredom that was needing to do something different. And also, sometimes it's politics. Like, let's say you don't like the person who was there before you. And now you want to basically cleanse them out of anyone's memory, which is stupid. That's just ego. And that's just underdeveloped spirit in us. That you want to wipe every good that other person has done so that no one can say, oh, you built on top of so-and-so. No, we actually should learn to build on top of others, not trying to destroy what others have done because we don't want to be associated with their work. That's just ego. It's mostly, for me, there's been toxic ego, it has been boredom, and it's been emotional immaturity on the part of the marketeer to not realize that there are certain things you should keep, and then there are certain things you can change. And even the change, you change slowly. You don't just change. I mean, that's why in soapies, they kill characters. They even have a funeral. And then you have people calling on radio, TV to say, how can we attend the funeral? Because they have to kill the character slowly, bury the character, or not bury it, make the character disappear, and then the character comes back again, and people are so happy. Soapy is one of the few places where characters die and come back again, and we don't even question it. But because they've done it, they do it so well, the transitioning of characters out of the story. And that's what we also need to be doing as well, is that we must transition characters slowly out of the story. And not, for example, I remember one mistake we made at Vodacom. When Vodacom moved from blue to red, we were quick to end the Yebo Gogo man, the black guy and the white guy, the old professor and the white guy. We were quick to end the meerkat. We were quick to end the certain symbols that defined the brand. And we used them just to introduce the red, and then we killed them. We didn't even have a funeral for them. We didn't even celebrate them. We didn't allow the citizens to move with them slowly. And so that's something that you learn over time, that perhaps we should have kept certain characters and mnemonics when we moved from blue to red, and then kept them longer to make sure that the consumer walks with us. Because you can't just change from blue to red. That's already a huge change in color. And red is harsh, blue is warm. And now you've moved people from harsh, warm color to a harsh color, and then you take away the things that they love, the Yebo Gogo man, the white guy who's funny, the meerkat that's funny, all of those things. So that was a big lesson for me as well, that you have to move slowly. Don't rush change because you want to please the global team, that to show that you did a radical change. No, you don't do that. You evolve slowly with people so that they can move slowly with you and then still love you and trust you. Next slide. Then the other thing that I've learned in marketing now is that visibility and availability matters. There's a book that you can all read. It's called How Brands Grow. I love that book by Byron Sharp. That book. It's just an amazing book, both part 1 and part 2. And the thing that he talks about is our job is physical availability, mental availability. That's our job. Physical availability, mental availability. Physical visibility, mental visibility. And then we refresh memory structures. That's all we're trying to do. You should be thinking, is my product physically available? Is it mentally available? Is my product physically visible? And is it mentally visible? Then you refresh memory structures all the time. Next slide. Is it Nivash? Oh, the other thing then is, the other things you should be focusing on is if your next slide is multi-channels. Remember, it's offline, online, offline, online. The industry in retail especially with COVID, has now moved online. E-commerce is growing. Online stores are growing. As a marketeer, you must embrace online stores and offline retail. You must do both now. You must do the convergence of e-commerce and or online. So you need to do both. Next slide. This you can read on your own leisure. I just did this because I was trying to show people that marketing is a relationship, and you can read it and you can see that if you want to be in a relationship, you must be available, you must be visible. There must be a desire to want a partner first. Then you must be available, whether you're available on Tinder or you're available on Facebook or you're available face-to-face, you are available, but you must be available. We must know you are available. We must be visible. Then we must draw insights. But you will see that the way you get into courting in a relationship is similar to the way you run a brand. Next slide. The other thing we must always remember is that product matters. The greater the product you're selling, the better. Quincy Jones, in his documentary, he says, a bad song cannot be saved by even a great singer. You still need a great song. If you have a great song, which is a great product, you can market it well. If you have a bad product, that's called spin doctoring. Your marketing is spin doctoring. You cannot have a bad product. You need a great product first. So don't go and market bad products. If the product is bad and is not working, work on the product first. Make it superior, and then go market a great product. Next slide. And I like this quote a lot. You must always remember also with product, we are not selling the problem, we are selling the solution. You are selling the thing that you are solving. So even with the product, is it solving the problem? Is it a solution? Because that's what people are buying. They're not buying the product per se, they're buying a great solution to their problem. And if you can do that well, you are on track. Next. I've always liked this Nike visual on great product. Nike, for me, represents great product. Next. There's another thing that you need to now learn is that when you create content, you have to now focus on video, voice. I learned recently that over 50% of messages on WhatsApp are voice messages. They're not text messages. So people are into voice. They are into also vernacular. So you have to now think about mother tongue a lot. You must be thinking about mother tongue, how to make content in mother tongue. And then there's this area that's new that's around virtual reality, AI, machine learning. These are the things now you should be thinking about a lot, is that video matters, voice matters, vernacular matters, and virtual matters. Next. I was asked not long ago, like, how do you split your media or your marketing, advertising and promotion spend? The thinking for me is there must be a core chunk on revenue and sales, because we are in the business of growing revenue and sales. Then there must be a chunk which is just about brand lift, marketing development. Then there must be a chunk which is about trust and reputation. There must be a chunk where you spend on insights, learning about the consumer and effectiveness. Then there must be a chunk that is just about experimentation and play money. Then there must be a chunk that's just about infrastructure, agency fees, in-house, partners, digital stacks and tools, all of that, the swag that you give to others, legal, all of that. So that's how I normally think about how you split your advertising and promotion spend. Next. There's a lot of stuff you can learn about metrics that you can study, how to measure, what to measure. So that stuff is available and you can go through it even on this slide. Next. So this is the same thing I've said. The way I look at my marketing spend, I look at it in this context. The bigger chunk must go into ROI, business, revenue, market share, growing users, growing usage. Then I start thinking about brand and reputation, then market research, production, agency fees, infrastructure. So that's how I'm thinking about my marketing investment all the time. Next. Even though I've said we must measure things, remember, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. So there's still other parts called intuition, feelings, gut. As a marketeer, as a creative person, you must use both. Just because we can't measure it doesn't mean it's not important. Just because we can't count it, it doesn't mean it doesn't count. Next.
So then, Mzamo, how do you build up credibility for your argument for things that cannot necessarily be counted, but they are critical to achieving success, whatever the success might be?
Then you need to be good at storytelling.
Yeah.
Then you need to be good at persuasion, nudging the other person. Because remember, if I, for example, I am partnering with Thinkerneur, it's not Thinkerneur I trust, it's the human being. Either I trust Mokhosi, so there's a point where my trust will allow me to let you experiment with something, even if it cannot be measured. But you need to work on our trust. You need to work on me being able to say, I'm betting on you more than I'm betting on the idea.
Okay. So then how do you build up that trust if it's a client agency relationship? Like what is it that adds to the rapport, to the connection, to a level where there is that trust, where like you were saying, you believe in the humans in there, not necessarily the corporate roles. How do you build that?
For me, remember, trust equals competency times consistency over time. So if you want to build my trust, let's say agency, first help me meet my brief, objectives, key results. Help me, make me shine. Help me. If it means for the first year, you're just all about winning my trust through competency, not this thing. Sometimes there's a flaw in agencies thinking that all we need to do is get me drunk, get me high. Let's do more parties. Let's go more clubbing. I don't do clubbing. I don't drink anymore. I don't need that. So I don't need you to take me out a lot. All I need is that help me achieve my objectives and key results, and do it consistently. That breeds trust. And then every now and then challenge me. Make me think differently. Help me. Remember, I have an objective at work to get promoted or to get a bonus or to get a share allocation. Help me get that bonus. Help me get a higher salary increase. Help me get that performance rating. When you do that, you increase my trust. Then I will be willing to trust you to experiment. And even when you don't win, I will take blame. I will also own it with you. I will go to the board and say, hey, we were experimenting. It was such a fuck up. We didn't get it right, but it was an experiment. We've learned from it. And I will never throw you under the bus. But if you're not going to be competent consistently over time, and then you want me to trust you, that's not going to happen. Here are some of the ideas that someone was asking me, how do I improve digital marketing? I've tried to put a few of the things that I know exist, for example, even within Google, that you can learn, like Google Trends, think with Google, start a Google My Business if you've got a side hustle, Primer, the app, test my website, which is something you can do today and tomorrow, G Suite. There's a lot of things that you can do to experiment, learn, and improve your digital skills. So I put some of these here. And for example, if you want to learn coding, there's even an app called Grasshopper that can teach you coding, that can even teach your child coding. If you want to secure your child online, you can download an app called Family Link, and it will help you monitor your child online. It will help you improve safety and security online. There's a lot of things you can do to improve your digital skills. I've just put a few things that I'm also doing. Grow with Google, digital skills for Africa. All of these are things that I do now to help me understand how to improve and how to know about digital marketing and digital marketing transformation. Next. You have to learn to give feedback. This is something I've learned, that most marketeers are poor at giving feedback. We are either overly nice or overly rude. And we haven't found the balance of giving radical candor. And radical candor means you are forthright and honest with the agency, or the agency is forthright and honest with the client, but done with care and respect. That takes skill. And that is something that I'm encouraging you all to practice. You can go also on YouTube and type Radical Candor, or you go on a podcast. There's a podcast called Radical Candor, and you can learn about how to give feedback in a way that is constructive. And stop trying to be overly nice with the agency. You are not there to be loved by the agency. You are there to be loved by the consumer. If it means you need to be hard and tell the truth with the agency, do so. If the agency needs to be hard and tell the client the truth, then it must be done. So please have the courage to be open, to practice vulnerability, to be high on forthrightness, but stop being cautiously open or cautiously closed and insecure. And then so those things are just wrong. And you give bad feedback and then you do bad work. Next. And one of the things I've learned, people have asked me for tools, like how do I judge creative? How do I give feedback? I tell people I actually use these tools. These are the things I do. I write on a blank piece of paper, A, B, C, D, E. While the agency is talking, I'm thinking attention, branding, comms, delivery, effectiveness. Then I write on another piece of paper, how does it make me think? How does it make the user think? How does it make me feel? How does it make the user do, feel, say? I do all of that. Then I write on another piece of paper, art. Then I ask, does it grab people's attention? Will it do it? And I score everything on a score of 1 to 10, or I do a robot system, green, red, amber. And while the agency is talking, I'm marking, ticking, or scale of 1 to 10, or robots, green, red. And then as the agency is talking, I'm just trying to figure out how am I assessing what is being said to me. Then I also put my objectives and key results. And then I also measure it around what were the objectives for this brief? What were the key results? Then I also tick there. Then when I start giving feedback, these are the tools that I've used to give the feedback. So these are some of the tools I try and use consistently. So when someone sees me with a blank piece of paper, it's because I'm writing these things and I'm marking and I'm doing sort of like being a teacher in a sense and trying to help myself so that when I start giving feedback to the agency, I can give it around attention, branding, comms, delivery, effectiveness. Or I can give it around attention, grabbing, relevance to the user, and talkability. Or I can give it around, you know that our objective was this, our key results was this, and I think that what you've just presented to me will meet our objective, will meet our key results, or it won't. Therefore, I need you to go back to the drawing board because you've missed the objective, you've missed the key results. But there must be a framework you use to give feedback so that you are not all over the place. These are mine, these are the ones I use. Maybe you have yours, you can share with others, but this is some of my cheat sheets that I used in giving feedback. Next. And next. You can read, those are bonus slides, and these are all bonus slides on, people were asking me, how do you increase promote to self-promotion? You can read, there's something called #I'mRemarkable. You can use it any day. You can go online and find it. It will help you increase self-promotion and self-evaluation. These are all just bonus slides, really. It's just the stuff that I've been thinking about that, remember, this just, you will see that these are all just bonus slides that you can think about. And thank you. I am so tired. Any questions?
Thank you, Mzamo. Yeah, that was a mouthful. And because we had interaction in between, I think it has been great. So I don't know if there are any questions. I see a question here, or there's a notification for a question. Okay, Tando is asking where they can get access to the notes or the slides. We'll share.
I will give it to Thinkerneur. Actually, I think I've done it already.
Yes.
You can, she can share it, or you can just ask me, email me or ping me, and then I will send it to you. You better have a Gmail. If you got Gmail, that's easy. Or if you send all your Gmail email addresses to Bukhosi, then I can just send all of it, all of you all at once. And then you can access it anytime you want.
Okay, fantastic. Awesomeness. I don't know if there are any more questions, but this has been very insightful. It's been very great, and I think the biggest key takeout for me is that one shouldn't sort of like pigeonhole themselves into a department, because I think what happens is that because we apply for a certain position, we lock ourselves in that position in terms of knowledge, expertise, and understanding things, because I think that's where we also fall short in terms of selling ideas and convincing clients about, we've thought about these multiple facets to your to your problem, or to your brief, because sometimes I think, particularly from an agency point of view, we come one dimensionally to answer your brief, and most often than not, it is the creativity, this obsession with the creativity must be, it must be this way, this is how it's going to work, and most times we don't even have the data or the expertise, or what you refer to as the I forget the term that you used. Um, it's not expertise, where we showcase our skills and capability. We just come in there, we say, this is the big idea, this is the creative, and we don't even, most times, we don't even interact or engage with other media partner agencies who are experts, who can say, okay, yes, you love the TVC, but in terms of creative development, maybe what you can do is plug in, or maybe have mobile first or digital first as a lens to say, this is the creative idea, because you need to apply yourself differently when you go into the digital world, in terms of how you execute, in terms of user behavior, how people scroll. So it's not like the storytelling in terms of building up. There's no time for that. Get into the thing, land the message, let the brand be the hero. I think it's great, and it's content and information and concepts that can be applied tomorrow. So I don't know if there are any other questions, or maybe wait. There's a notification for a question. Got comments or questions from Dombentle and Mpo. So Mpo is asking, I'd like to ask a question around addiction in the industry. Whether it's coffee, hard drugs, or glass wine, or a glass of wine every night. How do you do the late nights on creatives, campaigns without numbing your fatigue, or your lack of motivation? So if you can't do the drugs, how do you then how do you motivate yourself? How do you do the late nights? How do you do the late nights?
The people have asked, because I've been worried about this and concerned, and because it's something that in the industry we don't talk a lot about, but I've been seeing it a lot, and I've been in this industry for a long time, so I've seen enough drug addicts or people destroyed by drugs because they all think it's functional drugs and they can cope, and they've been snorting for years and it's okay, and it's a functional drug, but then until depression hits them or bipolar hits them, then it's just downhill from then. And I even had someone not long ago, whom 5 years ago, when I was CMO at Vodacom, that I had given an opportunity to pitch and they ran their own agency. They just started their own agency. And unfortunately, I'm taking risk. When you're the only Black person in the boardroom, you take risk. And when you give your own people opportunities, this person came high, very high, and super high. And they lost that opportunity purely because of drug addiction. And so that kind of made me concerned more and more that there's a lot of numbing here that we don't want to talk about. And when I've asked a few people in the industry, what do they do as an alternative to drugs, hard drugs? Most people said, find something like, I run, so exercise a lot. Find something other than the drug. Some people use food as numbing in the industry. I have a feeling that as soon as you're a student, you probably come in at great percentage body fat, body weight, everything. If we were to do a longitudinal study on creative people and marketeers, I promise you their BMI rockets as soon as they start becoming marketeers, advertising agencies, market research. I have a feeling, it's a hypothesis I have, that there's a high correlation between creativity, stress, and body weight. So that then means that we're going to have to do more exercises. You're going to have to train. Then other people told me that what they do, exercise, gym, running. Then what they also do is breath work, meditation, yoga. They get involved in other things. Then the other thing that keeps you sane is relationships. You have to have quality relationships. You have to have people you can go to where you can scream, vent, cry, laugh, all of that. And if you don't have, then sometimes what I'm finding with the industry, people are loners, and they just loners. They work 24/7. They have no friends. They have no quality relationships. No wonder then you turn into cocaine as your friend. And no wonder you turn, so there's a lot going on that I'm not an expert in this area on how we can help people not numb using hardcore drugs. But so far, the things I'm learning, maybe it's something that perhaps as an industry, we need to find more experts on to talk about mental health and the creative agencies, or mental health and marketing. It's something that we need to bring experts to talk about alternative ways to numbing using hardcore drugs or food or all of that. So it's actually something, you've just given me an idea now that it's something, perhaps one of these days I'm going to put together a panel of health experts to talk about alternative ways to numbing for creatives. Because creative people are prone to mental health and mental disorders. Prone. Therefore, they are prone to drug use. And that just comes with the blessing of being creative. Because you're high on openness, you are also high on experimentation. You're therefore high on experimenting things you shouldn't be experimenting. Someone like me experimented once with cocaine, and I didn't know then it was cocaine, but I was lucky that I had a bad trip. I was paranoid. I had such high levels of paranoia there to call a doctor to inject me. That was the first and the last time. I experimented with cigarettes and I was on the floor. I dragged once and I collapsed. And that was my last time with cigarettes. So me, I'm lucky that I have my body converts alcohol to poison. It converts nicotine to poison. It converts cocaine to poison. So I'm lucky than most. Some people, it's like a sweet to them. It's like chocolate. As soon as they eat it once, then they in. I'm lucky that I never had those cravings or addictions. So it's not that I was not naughty. I just got lucky. So I think it's an area where I need to do work in. I am gonna, on my mental note, on how do we talk about mental health and creativity.
Whilst you're doing the mental note, maybe you can start a Google Drive doc there so that we can all see. And then there's another question from Tombendle. She's asking about the tension between global and local brands. Obviously, the importance of local brands doing well for the economy. But then the question is, what do you think are the challenges that face local brands being able to compete internationally? And they're asking specifically if you have any pointers, and they've got a specific number here, 5 pointers that you could give to local brands in building sustainable brands. For example, if I'm in the detergent or in a certain category, the example they give is, for example, how do they compete with sunlight?
Now let me start with someone that I like, Maxhosa Africa, or let me start with Latu, because that's a local brand. What is it that is great about that brand? First, the product works. The product design is great. What that Latuma has been able to do with his sister, family, and the team is that they take something that is authentically African, authentically traditionally African, and they modernize it, or they make it in our everyday world at a premium. So they are selling something that when Beyonce wears it, when the superstars global wears it, they feel more African, they feel more black, they feel, so what have they done first? They gave us a great product. You are not gonna get away from great product. If Latuma gave us a shitty product, even if the idea was great, that thing was not gonna travel. Maxhosa Africa was not gonna travel. So first you need a great product. You then need to wrap it in a great story that we can all relate to. Latuma has an Afrocentric story, has a Xhosa patterns story, which we can all relate to. And now with Afrocentrism, Black Panther rising, people want to be more black, they love being black. He's in the zeitgeist. He's tapped into something, an emotion that we all want, an identity. We want identity, we want to reaffirm being black. And he's in that zeitgeist and he's tapping into it. And he's even his visuals. You look at the way he advertises, the way he does his fashion shows, he's in the zeitgeist. That is something that we can all learn from. Then when he takes his product overseas, now Latuma uses online. Latuma has e-commerce. So what has he done? He's democratized his market. He's not seeing his product as a local product. He sees it as a global brand. And we partnered with him, even as Google, to help him improve ad sales, help him improve leads, help him improve transactions into his website, improve his website optimization, improve stuff. And Latuma is thinking with his team on how do I optimize my website? How do I optimize ease of buying on my website? How do I respond quickly? How do I make sure I have range? And that's all the stuff that is not rocket science. It's stuff that is being done by everyone. Same thing. One thing I need to say to Black people all the time, stop selling us products because you're Black. No one buys shit because you're Black. We buy great product wrapped in a great idea first. We buy value first. Then you so happen to be Black. It's like an onion layer after layer you put maybe last. But you can't make that your primary reason why we should buy you. That won't work, it won't fly. Because we don't buy your skin color, we buy value. We buy great product. So if you want to compete with Sunlight dishwash liquid, remember when MAC came to South Africa, they launched a washing powder and a dishwash liquid that was superior or at parity on superiority to Sunlight dishwash liquid and to Omo washing powder. First product, they launch a great product that works. Mm. And you can't run away from great product. And please stop saying things, no, I'm Black, support Black. No, support great product that has a great idea wrapped in it that so happened to be a Black person. For example, me, I support Latuma, Maxhosa, 100% and unapologetically because it's got a great product and I like the idea and it's Afrocentric. I support a brand called Ethnic in Nigeria by Tunde. I like the product. I like what he's done with the product and it's West African centric and he uses ancient fabric, ancient knitting. That is a skill that is being lost, hand woven stuff. that I like because it's restoring our identity, our heritage, and it's celebrating it. When I go to Kenya, I have artists there that I partner with that I like. In South Africa, for example, there's a brand called Ifele. It's a sandals, and I like Ifele because they've taken Zulu motifs and Zulu patterns and designs, traditional ones in villages, and they put them in a more modernized, nice, soft leather sandals that I can wear anywhere. And when people ask me, where do you get that from? I'm like, it's Ifele, it's in South Africa. It's not available in New York. It's not available, but it's even bought by people in Japan, bought by people in New York. Because what has that person done, Ifele? Reggie, I think it's Reggie Kaba. What has he done, Reggie? He has given us a product that is great first. Then he wrapped it in Afrocentrism, and then he so happens to be black. We need to stop this thing of, even your dishwash liquid, we're not going to buy it if it doesn't remove stains, if it doesn't remove superior stains. It must do the same job that others do and more. Then you wrap it in great idea, then in great creative. Then you tell us, oh, I'm black, but make that your 5%.
Okay, cool. We've got Christelle Peterson who would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Bokosi. My question is, and Mzamo, you've said it now a few times that you cannot market the product unless it's great. In a case, I'm in higher education, where you are not responsible for the product development. Let me just rather tell you. So the product development is on the side of the of academia. So regardless of the fact, sometimes you've been working in academia, regardless of the fact that you're trying to, you give them the data, you give them the research that's been done. This is what the client wants. Your product is irrelevant. What we are selling, because I think you said it earlier, is not relevant anymore. How do you cross that barrier to get buy-in from those product developers / academics, so that they listen to you?
This is a very good question, because it's something that you will find that you encounter a lot in industries where marketing is not the lead, especially in industries like banking, telco, technology, where product engineering or academia in academics is the lead. So you find that it's actually not just, it's not prevalent only in academia. It's actually, I've seen it now that people I mentor or coach, or even me, I was lucky that at Unilever, marketing is the lead. At Nike, marketing is the lead. But at Vodacom or Vodafone, marketing is not the lead. So you have to influence product engineering, accountants to buy into your story. The other place, for example, at Google, product engineering leads. So my job is to figure out a way how to persuade and nudge product engineers to improve products and make them more helpful, more relevant in Africa, to make search, to make maps, all of those more relevant and helpful in Africa. So what I've learned so far has been useful for me is that see this as a marathon, not a sprint. Start there first, because you're gonna lose your patience if you're in it for a short term. See it as a long-term game. Then the second thing, do lots of user research, lots of bring the user in. We do lots of videos, interview the user, interview the market, show how people use the product, why the product is not working, show what competitors are doing, and then write a clear story that is compelling, that talks to the head, but also talks to the heart. What sometimes marketers forget when they talk to product engineers or academics, they are also human beings. They've got a heart, they've got an ego, they've got a soul. So you need to figure out a way how to talk to that heart, how to talk to that soul while talking to the head. So we start crafting great storytelling narrative. We start writing things that will help the product engineers see why is the product relevant? What can we do to make the product relevant? And then we start promoting things like pilots. Rather than demanding for change quickly. We then say, why don't you let us pilot this thing and then measure progress? Same with academia, by the way. Remember, the academics mostly that you are pitching to tend to be, let me stereotype, white male, 60-year plus. They're not going to change tomorrow. They're going to stick to what works. And you, as a marketeer, you probably tend to be in your 20s, early 30s, and you're talking to a 60-year-old professor, so-and-so, and they're not. So you need to figure out ways how to find allies as well. So then what you should be doing is look within academia and find who are the early adopters. Because you will find even within academia, there are early adopters. And then you try and work with them, pilot stuff with them. Because I promise you, when it works, everyone likes winning. So they will adopt it if so-and-so is getting the recognition they deserve, all of that. But you're gonna have to be, Crystal, in a Machiavellian Art of War. You have to read that book. You have to understand Machiavelli. You have to think a lot about, I'm in a marathon. I'm not in a sprint. How do I have allies here? How do I tell stories better? How do I bring the voice of the user, the voice of the learner, the voice of the person who's going to be consuming this content? How do I bring the voice of other competitors, what they're doing? So you're going to have to learn to be a better storyteller. And then you're going to have to then be persistent. You have to have high levels of grit. You're going to have to be knocking at doors. You're going to have to not give up. And you're going to have to do it sometimes in small pilots to gain the reputation and credibility before you roll it out at scale.
Thank you so much, Mzamo. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. And then there's a question from Lulama. So question is, why does the industry have so few senior female leaders? There are so many females at the entry level. What happens in between?
I once read a study about the dropout rate, because marketing and creative is actually predominantly, and media, is actually predominantly women. Almost, as a CMO for the past 15 years, the people who I've led, 80% of my team has been women. So that upfront tells us that the issue is not the base coming in. The issue is career progression up. And then what that means is that the first thing is, the biggest challenge, the first one, is the males that are in power. If Mbuhosi and I, let's say my team is 80% women and 10% men, I will tend to be biased towards those men far more than over-indexing on the women in my team. And it's sometimes the men that are the problem, in that we undervalue the contribution women bring. We promote more the guys. We do more stuff with guys. We have guy talk. We talk about pornography and shit that doesn't add value to the brand. But we laugh and we do runs and we do stuff, golf, and do stuff with the guys. And therefore the guys have a more face-to-face time with me, more familiarity with me, but the women don't. So the job of the marketeer CMO male is to actually over-index in giving more support with the woman, in making sure that your succession plan, the ratio is 3-to-1, 3 women, 1 guy to succeed you. But you are more deliberate, intentional, and proactive. The second thing that happens as well is that there is a point where women prioritize other things. Women prioritize other things that matter in their lives. Like, I've noticed a chart once that showed that the women will get married, they would have kids, and then they will go on maternity. Guys don't have maternity, and guys don't take paternity. They don't take paternity, which is wrong. Men should also take paternity as well. And that also helps in that it levels the playing fields, that men should also go on paternity for 4 months so that they can take care of the kids and stop being only a woman's job to sacrifice their maternity and be out of work for 9 months or 12 months. That delays the career. Men always shoot up. When women, you see that when women, a man and a man and a woman starts a job at the same time. Both their marketing assistants, they become brand managers at the same rate. As soon as they get married, the lady gets pregnant, or then you see the guy goes up, the woman's career gets stagnant or stagnates or stands in one place. And that just shows that the patriarchy that we have is not designed, it penalizes pregnancy. It penalizes marriage to women. Guys benefit more than women do. So those are some of the things we need to start resolving. And then succession planning. I should be held accountable as a male CMO on who my successors are. And actually my promotion, my performance rating, my bonus, my share scheme should also be linked on, do I have sufficient underrepresented groups as my successor? Who I mentor, who I coach, I should over-index on the underrepresented groups. And then there are their own goals, though, we must talk about, that women, particularly Black women, also do. For example, when I'm with Black women in meetings, you're the first ones to want to volunteer to take minutes. Why? Are you a secretary? Do you have a master's degree, a PhD? Why are you so quick to want to take minutes? It's not your job. You're the first one to volunteer to offer coffee and tea. That's not your job. You're not employed that. Immediately you do those things, we see you as a secretary. We see you as a tea maker. We see you as a domestic worker. No different from the ones that left at home, men, especially men. And so and then women also sabotage each other. I've seen this a lot. It doesn't say that men are not the problem, but there are also certain things that women do as well. I've had instances where women come to me, they say, oh, so-and-so is a bitch. We must get rid of her. I'm like, wow, I thought you are on the side of women support. They're like, not this woman, the other woman I'll support, but not this one, she's a bitch. Or this one is full of shit. Or this one dresses badly. Or this woman scanner and gossip about other women in guys' presence. And that is own goals that women also score. Women themselves are not united in supporting each other, moving up the ladder. It's the same thing with Black people. When we get to work, we're not united. We want to please the master. We want to make the master happy. And we don't unite. We don't do those things. Whereas when you look at the other races, they're tight, they're united. They have meetings on the side. They help each other. They write briefs as a group. They do things as groups. We don't do those things. Then we wonder why we're not progressing fast enough. So I would say there's an element around parts of toxic patriarchy, but I don't believe all of patriarchy is toxic. But there are elements of toxicity and tyrannical nature. But there's also elements of matriarchy that is toxic and also tyrannical that stands in the way of women progress. That's my belief.
Awesome. I think we're going to have to draw to a close, but then there's a question by Anonymous. So the statement reads, I work with marketers across the African continent, and I find that South Africans are very ignorant about Africans and their context. Have you experienced this, and how have you overcome this?
I've experienced it a lot. If I listen to marketers, they say that it's a Black South African or white South African. They'd say, I'm going to Africa. Immediately I know, oh, that one's ignorant. Didn't you read geography? South Africa is in Africa. So how can you be going to Africa when you are in Africa? So that immediately is a test for me that, oh, the high levels of ignorance there. So I experienced that a lot. And the only way to push for less ignorance is try and make sure your marketeers study history of the country. Bring historians. When you have your own marketing sessions, bring historians to come and talk about the history of Africa. Bring Africans outside your own space, South Africa, and bring them. Bring Nigerians. There's enough Nigerians in South Africa. Bring them to come and talk about being Nigerian. Bring Congolese. Bring them to your team. And you can find people everywhere. You can find Senegalese. You can find academics to come and talk. So do the talks in your teams about that. And then travel the continent. If you want to be a good marketer, travel the continent. I've traveled the continent a lot. And when I'm in each country, I'm immersing myself in that country. It's history, it's politics, it's culture. If I can meet an anthropologist or politician or historian, I go meet them, because that helps me understand that place better. So I would say there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but start with championing it. You know enough, there's enough Nigerians. I mean, where I stay now, my neighbor, both of them, sides, left and right, are Nigerians. So why can't I just go next to her and say, hey, what's happening in Nigeria these days? Tell me more. Tell me more, what does it mean to be a Nigerian? Tell me more about West Africa. There's also YouTube clips. When I was visiting Nigeria a lot, I went on YouTube and I listened to videos on the history of Nigeria. I watched Nollywood to understand what Nigerians are watching and why are they watching that content, what are the themes. Then when I go to Tanzania, I try and do the same, go on YouTube, learn about the history of Tanzania, then watch what are they consuming, what media they consume, go and watch that media, watch that content, what music are they listening to, watch that music, listen to that music. So there are ways to increase your knowledge and reduce your ignorance about the continent.
Cool. And then there was a question from Karabo, but I've just sent you an email on that one.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, those are the questions. I don't know if there are any more questions. I don't know if you have any parting words.
For me, you have to leave your ideals so that your ideals can start showing in your work. That's the only way your ideals show up in your work, is when you leave your ideals. But for you to be able to leave your ideals, I do understand that money matters. You need some financial freedom. You need some fuck of money. And that's why I'm really, really championing this with everyone, that please start young, start saving and investing young. Stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Stop getting yourselves into debt. Work hard on your mental freedom. Use money for experiences. Travel the continent. Write diaries about the continent. That will make you a great marketeer. Travel the world. See what they're doing. Rather buy those experiences than fancy stuff that you're not going to need tomorrow. And they just make you happy in 24 hours. And then after that, rather buy experiences. Travel a lot. Do a lot more of that than buying fancy clothes and fancy things. And so I would really say that your ideals, to live your ideals so that they can show in your work, it means get the basics right, get your money right, get stuff right, and get yourself right. See a therapist, see therapy as a solution, just as much as you see a physical trainer and you gloat about them on your social pages. Gloat about your psychologist, gloat about your therapist, and just work on yourself. And you will see that slowly things will work out. And also do remember, your life is an evolution, not a revolution. Slowly built, last. Nothing happens overnight. Slowly built, last. I can assure you this, that slowly built, last. And if you work on slowly built and it's a marathon, you have a far greater chance than quick wins. You now can see politicians being taken, things are being repossessed, assets that they were gloating, throwing at our faces are being taken away by the hawks. That's easy come, easy go. And if you don't want that with your life, then you need to know that the consequences are you're not going to sleep peacefully. You're going to get edgy when a phone call rings. You're going to, so rather slowly build last and just leave your ideals so that your ideals can show in your work. Those are my last parting words.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mzamo. It's been very insightful. I believe these are practical lessons and tools that one can start applying immediately. And I think we'll make sure that the presentation gets shared with the audience as soon as possible. Because I truly believe in acquiring and immersing one in knowledge and content that is useful now. I understand the aspect of academia, getting degrees, but I think what becomes helpful is you being able to add value to your team almost on a daily basis, right? Being helpful, being useful, so that you become the person that you wish to become. So I'd like to thank everybody who attended. Thank you so much. Bongikosi, I see your comment, and Lizzie and everyone else. You're welcome. So this has been very amazing and exciting. So just to make a note on the next lecture, as mentioned, so we've got Rory Sutherland, who's the vice chairman of Ogilvy, and he talks about behavioral economics, right? And I've seen his videos. I love his videos where he speaks about. I love what he says when he says, "The opposite of a good idea is another good idea." You know, which I think is a great quote. And I think your content, part of your content, has definitely been a great foundation to establish the importance of topics like behavioral economics and how people make decisions and how humans actually behave. And I think sometimes we complicate this thing, right? We absolutely complicate it. And in fact, the other day I just had a thought about what is strategy. You know, sometimes you just need, the same way you would brief on a business card that says, on the one side says win, on the other says World Cup. And I think even the solution can be that simple. You know, I was thinking the other day that actually what strategy is basically that one powerful insight that just makes your mind go crazy. Sometimes that's all it is. Everything else is just, you are just, marking the register in terms of, from a strategy point of view, we did this, we did that. Sometimes all you need is just that insight that'll empower you. So thank you very much. Yes, Honorable Larry, I think you came in late or you just joined us. Do you know Honorable Larry? Mzamo? No, not this time.
I'm aware.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, guys. So, awesome. So I'm gonna end and close off the recording, but I just want to say thank you for attending. It's been very, 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 very exciting, particularly for me, because I genuinely believe in these sessions and these discussions. I think this is where you get, most value, where we learn from experience. So thank you very much. Hope to see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Mzamo.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys. Annette, Ayanda, Beachbody, nice to see you. Bongikosi, Crystal, January, Crystal, Janice, Koketso, Linda, Lizzie, Lulama, Mamelo, Manisha, Nandipa, nice to see you. I owe you a call. Ntinyeko, Quilla, is it Quilla? Ish, I don't want to mess up your name. Quilla, Simamgele, Dabuho, Tando, Tiamo. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.